Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Confusion. Why do you say that? It's precisely because I can't understand the heart that I was disconnected from the cluster. Shui murmured. Though her face barely changed, there was a hint of loss in her ruby eyes. Insistence. I've explained so much, so please engage in deeper communication with me. If you're not satisfied here, I can find somewhere else. Shui pressed further. You're really persistent. Riku shook his head. It looked like simple persuasion wouldn't work, so maybe it was best to keep her by his side for now. Riku's golden eyes flashed as he fell silent, thinking. Otherwise, with her running around looking for him, something unexpected might happen. Seeing that Riku wouldn't answer, Shui suddenly lowered her head and stole a kiss from Riku, making his golden eyes widen in surprise. What on earth? Perplexity. We made contact, but I still don't understand the heart. Shui sat back up, touching her lips and murmuring blankly. I told you that method won't work. Riku covered his face, annoyed. He should probably be happy about this, but all he felt was an overwhelming sense of absurdity. Whatever. My name is Riku Dola, just call me Riku. And you? Unlike before, Shui didn't answer immediately. She just stared at Riku in silence, as if caught in inner conflict. Riku raised his eyebrow and said again, tell me your name. Answer. UK207PR4F57T9. Shui finally snapped out of her daze and recited what sounded like a string of code. UK207PR4F57T9. That's way too awkward. Pick something more human. Riku shook his head. Dissatisfaction? My name isn't awkward. Shui seemed to pout, her tone carrying a trace of sulkiness. To Riku, it was actually pretty cute. Change it. If you want to understand the heart, start by learning from humans. First, give yourself a decent name. Riku said, calm and confident. Answer. Turkixila. Hearing this, Shui fell silent, twirling a strand of her black hair around her fingers, and finally said with difficulty. That still doesn't sound human, and honestly, it's not great. From now on, your name will be Shui. Riku said, raising an eyebrow and making the decision for her. Confusion. Didn't you say I should name myself? Why did you overrule me? Dissatisfaction. Why not just give me a name in the first place? Conclusion. Riku is making fun of me. As she wriggled atop Riku, Shui glared at him. Her expression was very human and, honestly, very cute. To Riku, this was proof that Shui had already gained a heart. Alright, Shui, don't get so hung up on it. And let's drop that mechanical-sounding code. Otherwise, people will know you're ex machina right away. Riku smiled slightly, shifting the subject. Shui was right, he really had teased her just now. Ana-chan, like this. Is it okay? Shui thought for a moment, ruby eyes flickering with streams of data, then suddenly broke into a big smile. She pressed her index fingers into the sides of her cheeks, looking as adorable as possible. Seeing this, Riku's eyes widened a bit. He was a little dazed. Okay, that really was pretty cute. It was such a sudden change, it was hard to process. Based on heart rate, skin contact. Riku was excited just now. He was very satisfied with Shui's previous mode. Hypothesis, I should use this template going forward. Shui spoke slowly. Ahem, just be normal, alright? Riku said, rubbing his face in embarrassment. Now, can you get off me? Riku added. No. Riku hasn't explained what a heart is yet. Shui shook her head. Heart is something you need to experience for a long time, it can't just be explained in words. Riku said. Since that's the case, how about making a deal with me? Deal? Shui tilted her head, puzzled. Yeah. Stay by my side, and I'll help you slowly feel what a heart is. In return, I want your combat power to help me end this insane war of the gods, to pull the god of war down from his pedestal. Riku's expression finally grew serious as he spoke. Based on our combat abilities, the difference is too great. Riku's chances of victory are 0. Shui replied without hesitation. No, probabilities aren't absolute. Just because it's 0 now doesn't mean it'll always be 0. Besides, maybe it's not actually 0 right now. Surface level numbers aren't everything. Riku shook his head and denied it flatly. Query. Confusion. Query. Conflict. As Riku spoke, Shui's head almost looked like it was about to start smoking. He worried for a second she'd short circuit. But in the end, Shui recovered. She fixed her gaze on Riku and finally opened her mouth. Deal accepted. No matter the outcome, Shui will follow Riku until the very end. Hearing this, Riku gave a genuine smile and reached out to pat Shui's head. As he did, Shui's ruby eyes flickered. Something strange welled up inside her. Shui, get up now, will you? After sitting on me this long, most people's legs would be numb by now. Riku teased. Okay. Upon hearing this, Shui finally got off of Riku. Riku took the chance to use some transformation magic to clean off the dirt from his clothes. Riku, where are we going now? Shui asked, confused. First, put on some clothes. Then we'll head back to the settlement. Riku said, rubbing Shui's head. Come to think of it, bringing another Lilai home in such a short time, was Kara going to freak out? The thought gave Riku a sudden headache. Okay. Though she was confused by Riku's reaction, Shui obediently produced a set of clothes and put them on. The abilities of the Ex Machina really were convenient. Just as Riku was considering whether to return by Shambhala or simply use the main gate, he suddenly stopped, narrowed his eyes, and turned to look east. Strong spirit reaction detected. Judging by distance, it's very close, it's about to reach us. Shui's eyes flickered, faint data streaming past as she spoke slowly. Chapter 28 Releasing such a powerful spirit reaction so brazenly. Should I call it confidence, or arrogance? Riku narrowed his eyes as if peering across space, trying to see the unknown presence in the distance, and spoke in a low voice. This spirit reaction was already stronger than Vi at her peak. It was definitely a high-ranking race, at least a Fleagle, possibly even a Dragonia. Not only that, but ahead of this aura, there was another terrifying, sinister energy so evil that Riku had sensed something similar from that high-level demonia, Black Hawk. But compared to Black Hawk, this aura was far stronger, definitely an even higher-ranking existence, most likely a Dragonia. With these two terrifying beings about to clash, just the aftermath of their battle would be enough to destroy everything within hundreds of thousands of meters. Even though the human settlement was far from them, it wasn't safe. Just as Shui had judged, the shockwaves would reach them. Shui, wait here. I'll be right back. Riku said in a deep voice. Understood. Shui nodded obediently. After patting Shui's head, Riku immediately teleported back to his room via Shambhala. Riku. Something bad happened. There's a powerful spirit reaction. Kara burst anxiously into Riku's room, holding something that looked like a compass. It was a spirit compass Riku had created, able to point toward any source of spirit reaction, so they could avoid it. And this time, the reaction on Kara's spirit compass was so intense, it was obvious how terrifying this new visitor was. Kara, calm down. Riku spoke gravely and patted her shoulder. Gather everyone and start evacuating to the next settlement immediately. Leave behind anything you must, do not hesitate. Riku ordered, his tone cool and decisive. What about you? Kara immediately sensed something was wrong and hurriedly asked. I'll go intercept the shockwaves. Don't worry, I have spatial abilities. I'll be fine. Riku replied with total seriousness. Spatial abilities. Got it, Riku, just be careful, okay? Don't do anything reckless. Kara's expression shifted, but she nodded and hurried out without another word. Looks like I'm still not strong enough. Riku frowned slightly. If he were stronger, he wouldn't need to evacuate, he could just go there and wipe out those two troublemakers himself. Still, no matter how annoyed he was, he had to do what needed to be done. In the next moment, Riku teleported back to Shui's side with Shambhala. Shui, I have a favor to ask. While my people are evacuating, if you encounter enemies, take them out if you can. If you can't, contact me. Riku said seriously. I understand. Shui hesitated a moment, but finally nodded. However, according to our contract, if Riku dies, Shui will self-destruct. Don't worry, I won't die. Riku smiled reassuringly. With that, he wasted no more words, immediately opening the third gate, the Gate of Life, of the 8 gates. Green aura surged around his whole body. At the same time, he activated Skywalk, bursting through the air at high speed toward the battlefield. Shui watched Riku unleash even more power, her red eyes flickering. Thoughts of what Riku had said earlier surfaced in her mind, making her fall silent in thought. Far from the human settlement, two enormous beings finally collided. One was a majestic white dragon, its body covered in gleaming white scales, soaring through the sky. The other was a demonic dragon, its body covered in signs of decay and corruption, exuding a terrifyingly evil aura. These two were a Dragonia and a demonic Dragonia. What a filthy form, Dragonia-looking demonia. The white Dragonia's massive pupils stared at the rotting black dragon blocking its path, speaking with scorn. Roar. The demonic dragon replied with a roar. The sound made the very space tremble, the air rippling in waves unnatural and terrifying. Just one roar sent cracks through the land below and the surrounding rocky mountains. Roar. The white Dragonia, enraged by the challenge, opened its jaws wide and roared back. Instantly, their clashing roars alone sent shockwaves that shattered the ground and mountains, sending stones flying and cracks spreading sheer destructive power. This was the terror of high-ranking races, just the aftershocks of their clash could annihilate everything nearby. Humans, werebeasts, elves, all would be trampled like ants. Rushing forward, Riku suddenly felt the pressure increase. A wave of unnatural storm surged from the distance, destroying everything in its path. Riku could only frown and punch the storm apart. He understood, deep down, that the beings he was about to face were stronger than he had ever imagined. Chapter 29. Facing the incoming shockwaves, Riku opened the fourth gate, the gate of pain, and forced his way toward the center of battle. All the way, he lost count of how many storms he had to destroy, each one sweeping out from the two monsters clashing. If the human settlement had been here, they would have been crushed like weeds. How lively! White and black Dragonia. Tens of thousands of meters away, Riku stood against the wind, staring at the two dragons, one white, one black, locked in combat. Their bodies became their deadliest weapons, tearing at each other, blood spraying everywhere. Immense energy blasted from their mouths, clashing and colliding in midair, creating waves of destruction that spread even farther. Even at this distance, with the fourth gate open, Riku felt the strain. Dragonia, the fourth-ranked race, was said to have infinite energy. For comparison, if an ordinary Flugel's energy is 10, then a single Dragonia scale was said to have 5. Multiply that by the number of scales on its body, and it was no wonder other races feared them. And the demonic Dragonia, no need to say more. A mutant from the number 2 ranked Phantasma, even more violent and terrifying. In terms of raw power, the demonic Dragonia was stronger, but in stamina, the white dragon had the advantage. Of course, Dragonia didn't actually have infinite energy. Riku noticed something off. One Flugel couldn't defeat a Dragonia, but 10 Flugel could take one down. The numbers didn't add up. Other races didn't know Dragonia's secret, nor could they find out. For example, the demonic Dragonia, despite having some intelligence, was mostly driven by the instinct to kill and couldn't see through the secret. At first, the two dragons seemed evenly matched, maybe even favoring the demonic Dragonia. But after a while, things changed. Every time the white Dragonia was wounded, its body miraculously healed in the next instant, restoring even its aura. It was like time itself was being reversed. Roar. Once again, after recovering from its wounds, the white Dragonia blasted the demonic Dragonia at close range. Under the force of the white Dragonia's breath, the demonic Dragonia howled as it crashed to the ground, shaking the earth. But the breath then exploded, a mushroom cloud rising into the sky and sweeping over everything for hundreds of thousands of meters. Far away, humans fleeing the destruction could see the light blazing in the night, their hearts filled with fear. This was what it meant for high-ranking races to battle even at a great distance. Death was unavoidable. Riku is fine. Hidden above, Shui scanned the explosion's direction, data flashing in her eyes, and murmured softly. When the flood of energy faded, what was left was an enormous, irregular crater. The only reason it wasn't even worse was because Riku had blocked one side of the shock waves. Everything in sight for hundreds of thousands of meters was gone, the ground scorched and charred. Did the demonic Dragonia die? Riku scanned the devastated land with a heavy heart. Roar. Suddenly, a furious howl echoed out. The demonic Dragonia, covered in wounds and with even its wings torn apart, shot into the sky, its blood-red eyes filled with murderous rage. Being badly wounded had only awakened the demonic Dragonia's bloodlust. Humphrey, an unkillable thing. The white Dragonia stared at the demonic Dragonia coldly, its thunderous voice echoing across the world. But by now, even the white Dragonia dared not relax. The real danger was about to begin. One slip, and even he could die here. Riku, too, watched the demonic Dragonia intently, always ready to teleport away. He'd hoped to swoop in after the battle and claim the spoils, but if he got caught in the crossfire, it would be a disaster. Roar. Almost as if reading Riku and the white Dragonia's thoughts, the demonic Dragonia truly went berserk. Its aura exploded with terrifying speed, its body swelling, blood-red eyes nearly glowing with killing intent. It opened its jaws wide, gathering blood-red energy. The white Dragonia's golden eyes narrowed, also gathering all its strength, preparing for a final clash. It wasn't that the white Dragonia wanted to face it head-on, he'd already been locked in. Trying to dodge or run would just leave him open to attack. This is insane. Seeing the two Dragonia ready to unleash everything, Riku didn't hesitate, he teleported tens of thousands of meters away. If two beings stronger than Drumroll fought without restraint, the destruction would be beyond belief. Staying nearby was a losing proposition. Chapter 30. At the very moment Riku left, the demonic Dragonia and white Dragonia almost simultaneously unleashed their breaths. In an instant, white Dragonia breath and black demonic Dragonia breath ripped through space and collided fiercely. At that moment, both the demonic Dragonia and the white Dragonia were fighting for their lives. Their breaths intertwined, clashing and grinding against each other, creating a core of black energy streaked with black lightning. Within that black energy sphere, the power was unimaginable enough to destroy everything. Under the influence of this power, the earth for millions of meters around shook violently, with cracks appearing everywhere. The closer you got, the more terrifying the phenomenon. Especially within 100,000 meters, it was like a magnitude 10 earthquake. The ground collapsed, deep chasms opened, mountains fell, boulders tumbled almost as if the earth's crust couldn't handle the pressure. Even space itself began to crack. Finally, as if reaching a critical point, the black energy sphere exploded. In an instant, the terrifying blast swallowed up everything around, heaven and earth churning as the energy flood surged out, destroying anything in its path. The white Dragonia and the demonic Dragonia were left with their fates unknown, disappearing into the heart of the blast. Tens of thousands of meters away, Riku wasted no time. He opened the sixth gate, the gate of view, unleashing thousands of punches in the blink of an eye, smashing apart the heavens and the earth to block the oncoming shock waves. Even so, he couldn't stop it all, and some of the force still escaped. At the crucial moment, Shui stepped in, raising a barrier to block the remaining shock waves. This, however, exposed her to confront the other humans. Everyone was struck with fear and awe, staring dumbly at Shui. Only Kara kept her cool. She noticed that Shui had no malice toward humans, and had just protected them. At that moment, Kara's mind flashed with the image of Riku. Thinking for a moment, she decided she should probably greet Shui. Elsewhere, once the energy flood subsided, Riku finally breathed a sigh of relief. He panted slightly, staring in silence at the bottomless, hellish crater before him. This was what a battle between high-ranking races looked like, utterly apocalyptic. For lower races, there was only one outcome: annihilation. Hopefully they're both seriously wounded. Maybe one of them will leave behind a corpse. Riku's eyes gleamed as he teleported to the center of the battlefield. Suddenly, the scene became clear. In midair, two bloody, mangled dragons slowly fell from the sky. The white Dragonia no longer looked majestic. Many of its scales had been blasted off. The demonic Dragonia was in even worse shape, its body covered in blood, even missing a chunk of its head. Yet despite the explosion, neither Dragonia had died, both were clinging to life, barely alive. Seeing this, Riku's lips curled into a smile. Was fate smiling on him? He had hoped for a mutual defeat, but this was better than he'd expected. So, who should I finish off first? Riku narrowed his eyes, staring at the white Dragonia. Dragonia's regeneration was too overpowered. He had to prioritize killing it, or it would recover in no time. But deep down, he sensed danger. Riku always trusted his instincts, so instead of getting greedy, he focused on the demonic Dragonia. Seventh gate. Shock gate. Open. Having made his decision, Riku didn't hesitate. He opened the seventh gate, his whole body surging with blue flames, smashing through the air so fast he left no shadow. In an instant, Riku crossed tens of thousands of meters, appearing right in front of the demonic Dragonia's massive head and punched with all his might. Boom. Sploosh. In that instant, Riku's full-force punch shattered the demonic Dragonia's head, killing it completely. The demonic Dragonia's huge eyes glared at Riku with boundless hatred. Dying at the hands of a Dragonia would be understandable, but to be finished off by a human stealing the kill, unacceptable. System, recycle. Riku said without hesitation. Understood. Recycling demonic Dragonia. Value, 50,000 exchange points, ding. Recycling successful. This time I really did get lucky. Hearing the system's prompt in his mind, Riku smiled in satisfaction. Unknown being, isn't it a bit arrogant to steal my spoils? At that moment, a deep voice rang out, and Riku looked over. On the other side, the now completely restored white Dragonia was glaring at Riku, eyes cold. So you were faking it all along. If I'd carelessly approached, I probably wouldn't be dead, but I'd be crippled right now. Riku narrowed his eyes, answering obliquely. Hey, you really think I wouldn't be on guard if someone had been watching the battle all this time? You noticed, huh? That's a surprise. But I wasn't exactly faking it. Those wounds were so severe that even I nearly died. Healing just took some extra time. The white dragon explained, looking somewhat surprised. Is that so? What a pity. Riku shook his head slightly. There was something Zerulus hadn't said aloud. If she really needed just a bit more time to recover, by the time Riku got close enough, it would have been easy to finish him off. As for why a powerful Dragonia would bother playing tricks, it was probably because she'd noticed his spatial abilities early on. Hey, it is a pity. But before that, can you explain how you made that filthy creature disappear? Zerulus asked, her tone meaningful. Is that also a type of spatial ability? Let's just say it is. Riku replied casually. There was no way he could explain the system's recycling power. Still, since the giant lizard before him wasn't attacking yet, there was no need to provoke a fight. The most important thing now was to buy time. What a strange guy. My name is Zerulus Kontyakita. You can call me Zerulus. And what about your name and race? The white Dragonia stared at Riku, curiosity in her eyes. Zerulus. My name is Riku Dola. Call me however you want. As for my race, I'm Humanity. Human. Riku answered steadily. Riku. Human? Are you kidding me? How can a human be this strong? Even if your aura isn't on my level, it's far beyond anything a lower race could reach. Zerulus was stunned, her voice full of disbelief. Humans are the weakest beings in this world, beneath notice from any other race. They can't survive as individuals, only as a group. With barely any spirit energy in their bodies, they have no real power. And yet, here was someone claiming to be human, showing this kind of strength. It shattered everything she thought she knew. Are you really one of those weak humans? Zerulus asked, as if trying to confirm. But actually, she was already mostly convinced. The body's features matched, and there was no reason to lie. What do you think? Riku replied calmly. Hey, interesting. In that case, fight me. I want to see just how strong a human like you can be and how you got so powerful. Zerulus's eyes flashed gold, full of curiosity and fighting spirit. You Dragonia are really a warlike race. Well, if you want to fight, I'll play along. But I pick the place. Riku narrowed his eyes, keeping his cool. Rather than letting this walking disaster cause havoc here, it was better to try and solve the problem elsewhere. Hey, fine by me. Zerulus agreed immediately, without any hesitation. Without wasting another moment, Riku's body flashed as he shot through the air like a meteor, blasting the air beneath his feet as he sped far into the distance. Watching Riku's astonishing speed, Zerulus's interest only grew. Breaking the limits of physical ability, something only the strongest were beasts could do, Riku surpassed even them by many times over. Before this, Zerulus had thought Riku was flying, now she saw he was running on air. System, exchange for a superior chest. As he sped along, Riku spoke in his mind. After recycling the demonic Dragonia's corpse and earning 50,000 exchange points, he now had 60,000 total. Time to open a new chest. Ding. Superior chest successfully exchanged, the system's voice sounded in Riku's mind. At once, a purple glowing treasure chest appeared before Riku. Even while moving at high speed, it stayed right in front of him. With anticipation, Riku reached out and tapped the superior chest to open it. Ding. Congratulations for opening a superior chest and obtaining Zanpakuto's soul. Zanpakuto's soul instantly evolves a Zanpakuto, unlocking Shikai and Bankai. The abilities gained depend on the user's luck. Zanpakuto's soul? As expected from a superior chest, what it gives is almost like a personal exclusive. Riku's eyes lit up at the voice in his mind. He already owned a basic Hisaki, unawakened Zanpakuto, but learning to communicate with it, then unlock Shikai and Bankai, was too much of a hassle. That's why he'd kept it in his storage space until now. But with this, if he gained a powerful ability, it'd be a huge asset. Abilities from Bleach aren't weak at all. Maybe it wouldn't be enough against a god of war, but if luck was on his side and he got something strong, fighting a Dragonia would be much easier. Use Zanpakuto's soul. Riku took his Zanpakuto from storage and held it in his hand, then told the system what to do. With such a good start, he saw no need to keep spending his points on more chests for now. Understood, the system responded without delay. Hey, human, how much farther do you plan to run? Seeing that Riku was still silent and racing farther away, already having traveled hundreds of thousands of meters, Zerulus shouted, annoyed. Hey, since you're in such a hurry, let's fight here. Riku suddenly stopped, turning to face the white Dragonia with interest in his eyes. Up next, it's time to bully a Dragonia. Chapter 31. You suddenly seem very confident. Is it because of that sword in your hand? Zerulus stared at the Zanpakuto in Riku's hand, which was glowing with a blue light, her voice full of suspicion. Who knows? Riku replied indifferently. People who casually reveal their trump cards are either idiots or egomaniacs. He was neither. Here I come. Riku's eyes flashed, and he moved. Boom. In the next instant, Riku vanished from his spot, the air where he'd been now shattered, booming like thunder. Zerlis wasn't panicked by Riku's sudden attack. She was surprised, though, because Riku was now moving twice as fast as before. Clearly, he'd been hiding his strength. Caught off guard, Zerlis could only swing her Dragonia claws to try to block Riku. But being small has its advantages. He was agile. Riku easily dodged the claws, even stepping on one to leap up toward Zerlis's abdomen, where he landed a full-force punch. Bam! In that instant, the air exploded and Riku's fist slammed directly into Zerlis's stomach. With a huge crash, Zerlis was sent flying, a massive fist imprint appearing on her belly, her Dragonia scales shattered. Her whole body was blasted into the sky. Roar! Reeling from the blow, Zerlis howled in pain. She'd known Riku was strong, but hadn't expected his speed and strength to reach this level. With just raw physical power, he could rival a Flugel. Caught off guard, she took a big loss. Hirutora. And that wasn't the end. After the first hit, Riku wasn't about to let Zerlis go. His veins bulged, pale blue energy flames gathering as he swung his arm. In a flash, the blue energy formed a massive, roaring tiger, blazing across the sky toward Zerlis. This was the ultimate move of the seventh gate, the Gate of Shock. Don't underestimate me, human. Even though Riku's punch had hurt her badly, Zerlis quickly stabilized herself in the air, roaring. Boom. In the next moment, terrifying energy gathered in her jaws and shot out. It was the Dragonia's breath. Tiger and breath collided. Dragonia versus Tiger, clashing with overwhelming power. Both forces cancelled each other out, exploding in a blast that destroyed the surrounding mountains and forests. Many demonia nearby were killed by the shock wave. Even distant rivers were rocked by gigantic waves, as if the world itself were ending. Where is he? As the explosion faded, Zerlis healed her wounds and scanned the area, but couldn't spot Riku anywhere. She grew anxious. Where are you looking, big lizard? Suddenly, Riku's voice rang out from above her head, startling her. Crack. Just as Zerlis reacted, Riku swung down, kicking her on the head and making her dizzy. Her giant body crashed toward the ground like a meteor. Bastard! As she plummeted, Zerlis looked up at Riku standing in the air and was consumed by rage. Being ridden on the head, it was humiliating. So, as she fell, Zerlis didn't care about her descent. Instead, she opened her jaws, gathered energy, and unleashed a Dragonia breath straight at Riku, engulfing him in a terrifying explosion that turned the sky crimson. Did I get him? Watching Riku disappear in the blast, Zerlis was momentarily stunned. It felt unreal to defeat him so easily. This isn't good. Suddenly, Zerlis's Dragonia eyes shrank. She'd sensed something. But it was too late. Riku had already reappeared, a bit above her, and landed another brutal kick to her head. Boom. With a deep thud, Zerlis's head caved in again, her huge body crashing to the earth like a meteor. The ground trembled violently, fissures spreading in all directions, a massive crater forming around her enormous body, the shockwave devastating an area for hundreds of thousands of meters. Roar. A second later, Zerlis roared furiously, flying up from the pit, covered in dust and looking utterly disheveled. Soaring in the air, a flash of light ran over her body as her wounds miraculously vanished, returning her to her peak. Even her aura was fully restored. Yet even with her body healed, Zerlis's rage was unquenched. She stared at Riku, killing intent blazing. Having her head kicked twice, this kind of humiliation was unbearable. What is this ability? I could swear I hit you. Zerlis finally calmed herself and asked coldly. Not only had he taken her breath attack head-on without injury, but he'd appeared by her side with no hint of spatial fluctuation. It was just too strange. As for that, Riku watched the somewhat bewildered Zerlis, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Why don't you guess? He paused, waiting for Zerlis to perk up her ears, then replied with a sly smile. Zerlis's expression froze for a moment. The sight of a massive white Dragonia with a blank stare was so comical that Riku almost burst out laughing. You're toying with me. But while Riku was enjoying himself, Zerlis's anger skyrocketed. In an instant, Zerlis roared, shaking the entire space around them. Roar. In the next moment, Zerlis suddenly spoke in a language Riku didn't understand. This was an incredibly terrifying word of power, the language of the Dragonia. Explode. If a Dragonia uttered, die, the target would die. This was the command of the superior over the inferior. The language of the Dragonia was also known as the language of creation, the universal language, or the decree of kings. No being in the world could resist a self-destruct command like this. Even the Flugel, created specifically as weapons of war and feared by all races, would die instantly if they faced a Dragonia's word head-on. As Zerlis spoke, everything in her line of sight exploded, rocks flew, Dust filled the sky, and even Riku's body seemed to blow apart, as if he couldn't withstand the word of power. Humphrey, that's the price of defying me. Seeing Riku cut down by her attack, Zeralis's anger subsided a little, and she snorted coldly. Hey, where are you looking, big lizard? But the very next second, a mocking voice rang out again, and Zeralis's expression froze. Her huge Dragonia eyes looked forward, and somehow, Riku had appeared there, seemingly completely unharmed. Why? Why aren't you dead? Seeing this bizarre scene, Zeralis was completely baffled, countless questions swirling in her mind. Hey, are you out of tricks already? Seeing Zeralis questioning her very existence, Riku replied coldly. The weak seek wisdom, the strong hone their claws. In this world, the powerful always prefer to crush their enemies with overwhelming force rather than clever tactics. Faced with Riku's ability, unless one had absolute strength, they could only be toyed with. Don't underestimate me, human. Upon hearing that, Zeralis went berserk. Being toyed with from start to finish, the feeling was enough to make her vomit blood in frustration. Roar. In the next instant, Zeralis gathered all her aura and power to the limit, channeling terrifying energy into her mouth. Then she unleashed her strongest breath attack directly at the ground. In an instant, an indiscriminate energy explosion swept across hundreds of thousands of meters, engulfing everything and turning the landscape into a scene just like the one from her previous battle with the demonic Dragonia. But this time, Zeralis was using a massive area attack, trying to kill Riku. What she didn't notice was the sly smile on Riku's lips at the exact moment she released her ultimate breath. Boom. Giant mushroom clouds rose, scorched marks and fissures spread, and the land was once again completely reshaped. After it was all over, Zeralis hovered in the sky, panting slightly, scanning the area for any sign of Riku. And when she saw Riku again, completely unharmed, her whole body began to tremble. Out of sheer rage. For the first time, she truly experienced what it was to be this agitated. Not even that tireless, endlessly challenging, and utterly idiotic Flugal ever made her this angry. I don't want to fight you anymore. I can't kill you, you can't kill me, let's just call it even. I figure you can't keep this up forever, right? But I have unlimited energy and undying existence. In the end, Zeralis chose to compromise, her voice full of helplessness. Maybe I have limits, but you're not really unlimited either, are you? Drop the Dragonia tricks. After watching and fighting you for this long, I've figured out the secret of the Dragonia. Riku's voice was cold and calm. Hearing that, Zeralis's Dragonia eyes narrowed, gazing at Riku in shock and suspicion. The reason your Dragonia race is so strong is because you possess the ability to span multiple timelines. Riku stared right at Zeralis, calmly stating the Dragonia secret unknown to the other races. A single Flugal can't defeat a Dragonia alone. If the Flugal's ultimate attack is a 10, each Dragonia scale is a 5. But a Dragonia has billions of scales, all overlapping. Yet when multiple Flugal team up, they can take down a Dragonia with minimal casualties. It's a contradiction. If Dragonia truly had that much power, it wouldn't matter how many Flugal or even gods they fought, they'd win. Add in their bizarre ability to heal instantly, and Riku had finally worked out the hidden ability of the Dragonia. Chapter 32. Hearing Riku's words, Zeralis's Dragonia eyes widened in shock and disbelief. What an interesting expression. Looks like I guessed right. Riku stared at Zeralis with cold amusement. To put it specifically, you Dragonia are multidimensional beings centered on the present, able to span the past and future. This is why you're said to have infinite energy, rivaling even some gods. Your existence isn't a point on a timeline, but a plane. So no matter what damage you take at this time point, you can fix it by gathering yourself from past or future time points, instant recovery. Unlimited reality reinforcement means unlimited power. Your bodies are just containers suspended within these converged timelines. By drawing from multiple versions of yourself, you gain multiple sources of power. This is the so-called infinite energy, an infinity rooted in time itself. A true multidimensional existence. In a single moment, you're invincible, so no matter how much you're wounded, you just gather an uninjured version of yourself from the past and instantly recover. That's why it looks like you have infinite power and invincibility. With that, Riku looked at Zeralis's changing expression with a mocking grin. So, drop the act. Defeating you is easy, all I have to do is keep damaging you continuously, giving you no time to reset. That's why a group of Flugal can kill you with only some injuries, but a single Flugal would always lose. Ha ha ha, how amusing. Thousands, tens of thousands of years, and no race ever figured it out yet you, a human, did. Staring hard at Riku, Zeralis's expression shifted from shock to admiration and then to laughter. Her laughter rumbled like thunder, shaking the ruined landscape around them. Your guess is spot on, but with your power, Defeating me is impossible. Even if you know our secret, you're only a little stronger than a flugel, you can't keep injuring me fast enough. But then, Zerlis smiled slyly, full of confidence. The weak study wisdom, the strong sharpen their claws. Sorry, but the moment you started acting superior, you lost. Riku replied with a cool, indifferent tone. What? Zerlis's face changed, a sense of dread rising. She fired a breath attack that tore through the sky, engulfing Riku's form. Yet her anxiety only increased. Hirutora. In the next instant, Riku appeared at Zerlis's throat, his fist like a mountain, blue energy gathering into a roaring tiger, tearing into her. What? Only now did Zerlis react, but it was too late. Her huge body was strong, but not agile. Boom. Zerlis screamed as she was mauled by the tiger, blood and scales flying everywhere. Bloom, Hanamaru. At that moment, Riku's left hand, gripping his Zanpakuto, suddenly turned cold. A terrifying spirit energy radiated out, filling the sky. The force left Zerlis shaken to her core, pain and disbelief filling her Dragonia eyes. Because it was her own energy she sensed. Boom. A pillar of crimson-yellow light erupted from Riku's Zanpakuto at close range, exploding against Zerlis in midair. The blast sent shockwaves rippling outward, space itself becoming dangerously unstable. A few seconds later, as the dust settled, the white Dragonia's battered body plummeted toward the ground, barely alive, while Riku descended to stand over her, staring into her weak, fading eyes. Hey! What a remarkable human. I never imagined I'd fall here. Zerlis stared at Riku, her voice frail. Recovering time points took a moment, but that moment was all Riku needed to kill her multiple times over. Her defeat was certain. I won't kill you. Riku gazed at Zerlis, thinking for a moment, and then spoke quietly. Why? Zerlis stared, shocked and suspicious. Would your Dragonia be interested in joining our alliance to drag the god of war down from his throne? Riku's gaze was serious. Killing Zerlis would turn the Dragonia against him. He wasn't afraid, but it would be a hassle. But if he could bring the Dragonia to his side, his chances against the god of war would soar. Hey, are you joking? Zerlis's Dragonia eyes narrowed, her tone odd. Although I admit you have both speed and strength enough to defeat me, compared to the god of war, both you and I are nothing but ants, Zerlis spoke with a self-mocking tone. Not just you and me, even Hartalif, the last king of the Dragonia, was killed in a single blow by the god of war, Artosh. At this, a flash of hatred burned in Zerlis's otherwise dim Dragonia eyes. Hartalif the was the oldest individual Dragonia, born from the remains of a god, the strongest of their kind. But after confronting the god of war, he was instantly slain. All Dragonia hold a deep hatred for the god of war. But it's pointless. The god of war is simply too strong, impossibly so. No one can stand against him. If the god of war actually tried, this war that has dragged on for thousands of years would have ended long ago. Yet for reasons unknown, after slaying Hartalif the god of war never appeared again. That, too, is a mystery. Perhaps. Even if all races joined forces, they still might not be able to kill the god of war. Not to mention, the Fleugel living weapons were created by the god of war, and even the Phantasma, Avonheim, is Artosh's apostle. The odds of victory are slim. Riku acknowledged this fact calmly. But that's only for now. Sooner or later, I'll defeat the god of war and reach the top. A glint of determination flashed in Riku's golden eyes. His voice was full of confidence and arrogance. He didn't even question whether he could do it, only when he would. An unbelievable human. Maybe they really do have the power to turn the impossible into reality. Staring blankly at Riku's eyes, Zerlis was silent, such thoughts surfacing in her mind. I can't speak for all Dragonia. I'm just a retainer of Regenlif the Enlightened. Zerlis sighed. I know. If you can contact Regenlif the Enlightened, just let him know. I'll convince him myself. Riku showed no surprise, replying calmly. Hey, interesting. Zerlis's eyes glimmered with intrigue as she looked at Riku. Going to the Dragonia nest, surrounded by their kin, just to meet Regenlif the Enlightened, was that courage or stupidity? But thinking it over, given Riku could see through the Dragonia's secret and outsmart her in battle, he was no fool. This guy must have another trump card, strong enough to escape even if all the Dragonia, including Regenlif, attacked him. For a moment, many thoughts flashed through Zerlis's mind. At last, she looked deeply at Riku. I understand. I'll do my best to contact Regenlif. Good. I've left a spatial marker on your Dragonia horn. If you want to find me, just trigger the mark. Riku said nonchalantly. Now, let's part ways. I'll wait for your message. With that settled, Riku didn't waste time, he teleported away using Shambhala. Efficient and carefree. What an interesting human. Is he really not worried I might betray or trick him? Looking around at the empty ruins, Zerlis muttered with interest. As she spoke, she also gathered her timelines and healed herself back to peak condition. Maybe, just maybe, this war will end at the hands of the humans whom every other race once looked down on. I'd love to see the faces of the other races when that happens. It'll be entertaining. Zerlis's Dragonia eyes glimmered, her tone playful. Well, for now, let's find Regenlif. At last, Zerlis shook her head and flew into the distance. Regenlif the Enlightened was always wandering through space, his whereabouts unknown, not easy to find. Elsewhere, 1,000,000 meters away, Riku appeared, releasing the power of the seventh gate, the Gate of Shock. Even for him, using the seventh gate for so long left his body aching. Phew, that was exhausting. Still, if I can bring the Dragonia into the Alliance, that's not a bad result. Riku murmured, his face a little pale. Maybe killing Zerlis would have netted him 50,000 exchange points, like with the demonic Dragonia, but gaining the whole Dragonia race as allies was worth far more. His goal was always simple, defeat the god of war, no matter what it took. Come to think of it, Kyokusugetsu and Hanamaru really are powerful abilities. Even a Dragonia couldn't see through my tricks. Finally, Riku glanced at the Zanpakuto in his hand, a satisfied smile on his lips. When he merged Inazaki with the Zanpakuto's soul, he gained two powers. One was Kyokusugetsu, the infamous illusion ability of Aizen from Bleach, a power that manipulates all five senses. With this, Aizen toyed with captain-class opponents like children, completely controlling the battlefield. Once Riku activated Kyokusugetsu, Zerlis was trapped in total hypnosis. The figures she attacked were nothing more than dust and shadow. Kyokusugetsu's ability to manipulate all five senses was, without a doubt, incredibly satisfying to use, though it consumed a huge amount of energy. After all, the stronger the target, the more energy it took to control their senses. Fortunately, Riku was using it while the seventh gate was open, otherwise, trying to manipulate a Dragonia in his normal state would have been hopeless, he'd be drained dry. The other ability was Hanamaru, the power to absorb energy, store it, and then unleash it in an attack. This ability was also extremely powerful, but it had its limits. Absorption had a cap, and after repeatedly absorbing Zerlis's Dragonia breaths, Riku had nearly reached that limit. It also consumed a lot of energy. Still, no matter what, Riku had won and won beautifully, making Zerlis dance in the palm of his hand. That alone was enough. Phew. Time to go Seeker and the others. After letting out a long breath, Riku stepped lightly through the air, leaving the area. Chapter 33. When he returned to the human settlement, Riku couldn't help but show a strange expression. He saw Shui being led by the handbiker, the two of them talking. The other humans looked somewhat awkward and uneasy, but otherwise had no complaints. Riku is back. Thank goodness. I'm so glad. Shui was the first to spot him, waving her hand from below. Riku, you're finally back. We were all so worried. Kara reacted next, joy clear in her voice. Wow, it's the leader. He's really flying. So, Kara was telling the truth, our leader really has incredible power, and the Ex Machina is following him too. That's great. Suddenly, the entire settlement broke into excited chatter. Riku understood instantly Kara must have explained things after Shui was discovered, otherwise, the situation would be very different. But this was a result Riku was happy to see. Everyone, it's fine. Just return to the settlement, no need to evacuate anymore. I blocked all the aftershocks just now. After landing, Riku explained softly. The settlement wasn't destroyed? That's great. Kara grinned while the rest of the villagers danced and cheered. After living here for 2 or 3 years, they'd grown attached to the place. Moving would mean starting over, which would be difficult. Riku, did you win? Shui walked up to Riku, tugging his sleeve. I won. Riku smiled, patting Shui's hat. Comparing the data, Riku's strength rose dramatically, but is still less than the Dragonia, yet he won. Strange. Shui tilted her head, speaking stiffly. Without her personality template, her words were mechanical and awkward. I told you, don't always trust the numbers you see. Riku shook his head. Shui nodded without further comment. No way. Riku, you actually beat a Dragonia. Kara finally reacted, exclaiming in disbelief. Even though Riku had said he was as strong as a Fleugel, this time his opponent was a Dragonia, and he'd won. The other humans were stunned. To them, beating a Were-Beast was amazing, but defeating a Dragonia, one of the top races, was simply unimaginable. It's inconvenient to talk here. Because of the earlier battle, there's a lot more black ash around, it's harmful to humans. Let's head back to the settlement first. Riku said gravely. Okay. At this, everyone nodded in surprise. Back at the settlement, After explaining the situation, Riku finally found a moment to relax. He decided to go soak in the hot springs. Riku, the water's ready. Kura came into his room with a smile. Shui, I'm going to take a bath. Stay here for a bit, okay? Riku patted Shui's head gently. Though the villagers accepted Shui's presence, there was still fear, an instinctive human response to outsiders, not something that would disappear overnight. So, having Shui wait in the room was best. I want to bathe with Riku. Shui suddenly grabbed his sleeve, speaking softly. Riku, you really have trained her, huh? Kura's eyes sparkled mischievously. Tor, what are you talking about? Shui, why? Don't you have a dust removal function? Riku shot Kura a glare, then said to Shui with a wry smile. Bathing together didn't sound bad, but with Kura in the room, it was a bit awkward. Because the dust removal function causes spirit reactions. It's dangerous. Shui replied quietly. Also, I want to experience bathing like a human, to feel heart, but I don't know how to bathe. Shui gave her explanation in her usual flat tone. Spirit reaction. Riku rolled his eyes. After such an intense battle, the spirit reaction in this area was already off the charts. Any spirit reaction from removing dust would just be drowned out. Besides, even if someone noticed, so what? The lower races would just tremble in fear, and the higher races, only the Fleagle, might pay attention, but even they would just take note and move on. After all, the fight was already over. What would be the point of coming here now? But, as Shui said, bathing together to understand heart wasn't a bad idea, and this kind of interaction wasn't to his disadvantage either. Riku, Shui has a point. You decide. Anyway, as your big sister, I won't stop you. Kura smiled mischievously. In that case, come with me, Shui. Riku gave in and nodded. No point hesitating any longer after all, he'd already slept with Faya, and Shui was destined to be his wife in the future anyway. It should be fine. Right? Looking forward to bathing with Riku. Shui nodded quietly. With a strange feeling in his heart, Riku led Shui to the bath. Watching their backs, Kura fell into thought. Shui was an ex machina, but her actions were growing more and more human. Seeking heart, huh? Kura murmured. She already has a heart. Chapter 34 Riku's private bath was beautifully lit by glowing crystals. At that moment, Riku was helping Shui wash her hair as she sat on the edge, kicking her legs. Hey, Riku, let's play a game, Shui spoke up suddenly. A game? Why now? Riku asked in confusion. Because I want to play. Shui answered softly. As she spoke, her mechanical headpiece lit up with small halos. A chessboard materialized. I thought you were worried about spirit reactions. Riku facepalmed. It's fine. The battle just ended. This little bit of spirit reaction won't be detected. Shui replied calmly. Riku's hand stopped on Shui's head. Was she actually learning to play tricks? Riku, if you win, you can do whatever you want with Shui. Shui rubbed a chess piece, speaking slowly. Why are you still on about that? Riku raised an eyebrow. If Shui wins, Riku must have deep communication with Shui. Shui ignored his retort and pressed on. How is it any different? Riku couldn't help but retort. And besides, you don't even have a hole. If Shui had data to reference, she could create the perfect hole to give Riku the greatest pleasure. Shui stated with robotic confidence. If you use your incredible ability for something like this, it's just wrong. Riku covered his face. But reference data, huh? Faya's body was about the same as Shui's. If she used that as a model. Suddenly, strange images flashed through Riku's mind, like Shui observing while he made love to Faya. He shook his head quickly to get rid of such thoughts. Ahem. I can't think about this. But Shui immediately noticed his reaction. Riku, were you excited just now? So, you really do have thoughts about Shui? Shui murmured quietly. Please follow your heart and do as you like with Shui. Do as I like. Well, you do have a mouth. Riku, his mind in chaos, accidentally spoke the words aloud, especially after recalling Faya helping him with her mouth the previous day. When he realized what he'd said, Riku's expression froze. Did I really just say that out loud? I see. Shui understands. I did miss that point, my apologies. Shui's eyes glimmered with a strange light. It's not that Riku isn't interested in me, Shui is very happy. The conversation was slipping off the rails. If this kept up, Riku might really cross the line. Riku, play the game. Shui insisted. Riku, play the game. If you don't, I'll consider it my win, and I can do whatever I want with you. Her tone was slightly sulky. Fine, I get it. Lost in his own thoughts, Riku nodded. In an instant, Riku and Shui started a chess match with themselves as the stakes. But even as a genius, Riku couldn't match an ex machina in chess. After a tough battle, he lost. And Shui, following certain rules, thoroughly ravished Riku. Though this kind of ravishing was actually quite pleasurable for Riku. Oh well. Seems worth it. After all, she'd be his legal wife in the future, and she is probably much older than him. Turns out ex machina feels pretty much like humans. That's quite a discovery. Riku muttered as he helped Shui wipe her mouth. Weird taste. Not delicious. Shui stared at Riku, eyes flickering. Let's not dwell on that. Come on, finish washing so we can go. Riku's face turned red as he coughed awkwardly. He hadn't thought about it at the time, but now he felt a bit guilty. Continue the game. Shui shook her head firmly. That sensation was strange, not in my database. I think. If we do it a few more times, I'll better understand heart. That's my conclusion. Riku covered his face. Was she getting addicted to this? Forget it, if we don't go out soon, Kura will start overthinking things. Riku, can't go anymore? Shui asked softly. Huh? Of course I can. Riku raised an eyebrow, annoyed. No man can admit he is incapable, no matter the context. Shui hadn't meant anything by it, but it still provoked Riku. Humphrey. Don't think machines can always win. Don't underestimate humans. Riku huffed. Game, continue. Shui showed the faintest of smiles, moving her piece first. Hey, Shui, isn't that cheating? Can't you let me go first? Riku protested. You said, don't underestimate humans. So Shui goes first, it's fine. Shui replied calmly. Fine. Riku could only nod, rubbing his forehead. Talk about digging your own grave. Why aren't they out yet? Kura waited outside for hours before she couldn't take it anymore. Raising an eyebrow, her face full of suspicion, she muttered, don't tell me they're really doing that. Just then, the bathroom door opened, and Riku and Shui finally came out. Both looked as calm as ever. Hey, Riku, why are you only coming out now? Don't tell me. Kura eyed Riku suspiciously, like he was some kind of animal. Don't overthink it, we were just playing a game. Riku coughed, his face innocent. It was chess, after all, nothing strange about that. Though this game of chess had left him nearly drained by Shui. Really? You weren't playing that kind of game, were you? Kura asked with a strange look. What are you thinking? Such dirty thoughts. If you don't believe me, just ask Shui. Riku declared righteously. Shui and Riku were playing chess, Shui added with a faint glimmer in her eyes. Is that so? Playing chess while bathing? Seriously? Kura sighed in relief, but couldn't help scolding them. Yeah, I got a bit carried away. Next time, I'll be careful. I'm a bit tired today, so I'm going to rest with Shui. We have things to do tomorrow. Tour, you should dress too. Riku said, leading Shui by the hand toward his room. All right. Good night. Kura nodded. That night, nothing else happened. Riku and Shui simply rested. To say he wasn't tired would be a lie. After all, he'd had a battle with Phi at dawn, then another with Zeralis at dusk, spending nearly all his energy. Just now, he'd almost been drained dry again by Shui. Both his body and mind were exhausted. By noon the next day, after greeting Kura and the others, Riku was preparing to set out. Shui, can this thing's ability analyze and simulate powers? Outside, Riku took out Shambhala and demonstrated, asking Shui. He already knew the answer. Ex Machina analysis was powerful if it could replicate even the Flugel's ultimate attack and the Dragonia King's collapse roar. Imitating Tigu should be easy. It can. Shui's eyes flickered with data, and after a few seconds, she nodded. Done. Good. Let's go. Target, the ruined elf capital. Riku smiled with anticipation. There was a platinum chest waiting for him there. As he spoke, purple rays appeared beneath Riku and Shui. They vanished, reappearing at the nearest spatial marker to the ruined elf capital. After the spatial transfer, Riku and Shui set off, making no attempt to conceal their spirit reaction. At Riku's current level, as long as he didn't run into groups of high-ranking races, he had nothing to fear. Even if he did like a group of Flugel, he could just teleport away. The Flugel also had spatial abilities, but without a preset marker, they couldn't teleport as freely. Chapter 35. As Riku and Shui headed toward the ruined elf capital, somewhere else, a group of elves was moving cautiously. Unlike their former elegant and proud selves, the elves now looked utterly miserable. Most of their faces were pale, clearly weakened. This was only natural. Ever since their capital was destroyed by the Flugel outlier, Jibril, they had been on the run, constantly watching for attacks from other races and hiding from Jibril, who hunted them relentlessly. They couldn't even use spirit magic freely. These past days had been a nightmare for them. Nirvalan-sama, everyone is exhausted. If we don't rest soon, we won't make it. A male elf approached a beautiful, golden-haired elven woman at the front, panting as he suggested it. On the run like this, unable to use magic or spirits, their stamina was barely better than humans. If they were were-beasts, this would have been nothing. All right. Half an hour's rest. Thinkner Valen massaged her golden hair, glanced back at her weary kin, and, feeling sympathy, finally nodded in reluctant agreement. They needed to reunite with their scattered companions, but pushing everyone in this state would only guarantee a massacre if another race found them. Thank goodness. At her command, the dozens of elves behind her dropped to the ground or onto rocks, relieved. Damn Jibril. Watching them, Thinkner Valen clenched her teeth in silent fury. That one attack from Jibril had wiped out half the elves, the survivors, carrying their grimoires, scattered in flight, now homeless. Thinkner Valen's hatred for Jibril ran deep. But no matter how much she hated, all she felt was helplessness. The gap in power was simply too great. Moments later, Thinkner Valen's expression changed. Noticing something, she stood up abruptly. On guard. The other elves looked around, panic in their eyes. From the rocky caves around them, hundreds of demonia slowly emerged. Damn it. Prepare to fight. Forget hiding your spirit reaction, kill these monsters first. Thinkner Valen's face darkened, spirit power flaring as she unleashed magic. Her power as an 8th-tier sorceress exploded. Arrows of flame materialized in midair, instantly incinerating several demonia. The other elves, most only 2nd or 3rd tier, weren't nearly as strong and could only hold the demonia at bay. Especially in their weakened state. They tried tactics, groups of 10 using spells in turns, Thinkner Valen holding the front, but they couldn't keep up. Wounded elves had to be rotated out and healed, but the injuries kept piling up. Thinkner Valen grew more anxious and frustrated by the minute. How could they be so unlucky, attacked by demonia at a time like this? Looks like you're having a rough time, elves? Suddenly, a childish voice echoed out, making Thinkner Valen and the other elves freeze. Thinkner Valen spun to the source, spotting a small figure atop a steep slope. At the front stood a blue-haired, kimono-wearing were-beast girl. Behind her were a dozen burly were-beasts. Were-beasts. Thinkner Valen's face turned grim. Now they were surrounded. Counting on help from the were-beasts? Not a chance. In war between 3 races, it was always the third party who picked off the survivors. If it had been another race, they might have stopped to negotiate. But facing demonia, mindless killers was hopeless. Hey, what brings the were-beasts here? Thinkner Valen managed to mask her nerves and asked in a cold voice. If you agree to a condition, I can save you, Fia said calmly. What condition? Thinkner Valen was taken aback, instinctively asking. That wasn't the expected answer. Shouldn't the were-beasts be kicking them while they're down? Do you really think you're in any position to negotiate with me? Fia's voice was cold and absolute. True, we have no leverage. But you must want to use us for something, right? If we die here, it'd trouble you too. How about this, so long as it's nothing that threatens our very survival, I'll agree. The rest we can discuss after. Thinkner Valen answered coolly. You're smart. But being too clever isn't always a good thing. I have no intention of harming the elves, so I'll accept your terms for now, Fia said, appraising her. But remember, if you break your word, your people can't afford the price. For my husband's sake, I'll do whatever it takes to complete the task he gave me. Husband? Thinkner Valen was stunned. Thinkner Valen looked at Fia with a strange expression. The lifespan of the were-beast race was relatively long, but Fia clearly looked underage, yet she was already married. Who the hell was the were-beast who married her? Were-beast, hurry up and help. My people can't hold out any longer. Thinkner Valen was anxious. They were already weak, and now that they faced several times their number in demonia, they were completely at a disadvantage. Many of her kin were already on the verge of death, and the casualties were not small. Assist while ensuring your own safety, Fia commanded, her robes fluttering. Understood. With that, over a dozen were-beasts leapt down the slope, moving at speeds almost too fast to track, rushing into the demonia ranks. I should get started too. It'd be nice to finish quickly and surprise my husband. Fia muttered, her tail wagging quickly and her pretty little face slightly red. With those words, Fia stepped into the air, leaping in a way that seemed to defy reality, and charged straight into the demonia ranks. In an instant, those huge monsters were smashed apart by her small fists, brutal and overwhelming. It was a shocking sight, a cute were-beast girl blowing apart monsters many times her size with a single punch, a pure display of violent beauty. Blood destruction? No, she hasn't even used blood destruction and has already broken physical limits. She's far beyond even that. Thinkner Valen stared at Fia's display in disbelief, drawing a sharp breath. At this rate, I can't take her lightly. If she hadn't shown her power, I was planning to use her or even betray her. But now, Think Nervalin felt a headache coming on. Faya's overwhelming strength made her abandon any such thoughts. Power ruled this world. A while later, the entire area was covered in the mangled corpses of demonia, blood flowing everywhere. The elves lost 10 members, a quarter of their group. As for the were beasts, only a few suffered minor injuries or post-blood destruction weakness. Faya herself was completely unscathed, just a little flushed from the fight and, of course, splattered with plenty of blood, looking extremely fierce. Elves, use magic to clean me up. I can't stand being like this, Faya said to Think Nervalin, frowning and wiping the blood from her face. Oh. Understood. Think Nervalin glanced at Faya warily before nodding. With Faya's strength, she didn't have the confidence to win in a fight. Better just comply. Your elves' magic is useful, I guess. Otherwise, I'd have to find a river to clean up. If my husband saw me in such a filthy state, it would be a problem. After a simple water spell, Faya's blood and dust were washed away, and she nodded in satisfaction. The werebeasts immediately followed suit, asking the elves for the same cleaning treatment. For a moment, the elves' faces were filled with humiliation. Their prideful magic was being used for cleaning. But remembering that these were beasts that had just saved them, they fell silent, swallowing their pride. To the proud elves, these recent days were unimaginable, their country destroyed, saved by their enemies. You should probably tell us why the were beasts saved us. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Faya smiled, staring at Think Nervalin, and said, I'll tell you straight. My husband and I wish to end the era of the god of war, so we need the power of the elves. Therefore, your people must join our alliance. End the era of the god of war? Are you crazy? Do you really think you have the power for that? Or your husband? Don't fool yourself. Think Nervalin's expression darkened. Don't forget, both our creator gods were killed by the god of war and had their divinity devoured. How could lesser races like us hope to resist? I can't do it myself, not even beat a single flugel, Faya admitted, shaking her head. Yet her eyes remained bright and unwavering. But even if I can't, my husband will definitely succeed. He will defeat the god of war and end this insane divine war. May I ask, who is your husband? After a moment of silence, Think Nervalin met Faya's eyes and asked. The confidence in Faya's voice was absolute. Who was it that inspired such faith? My husband's name is Riku. He is human, Faya said, her red eyes dreamy. Human? A monkey? Think Nervalin blurted out, stunned. To all the races, human didn't even count as a race, more like monkeys leaping everywhere. Elves especially looked down on humans, considering them nothing but beasts. If you say that again, I'll kill you right here. Faya instantly activated blood destruction, placing her hand at Think Nervalin's throat, her red eyes full of killing intent. Cold sweat poured from Think Nervalin, shocked by the strength Faya had kept hidden. For the sake of a mere monkey. Let go of Nervalin-sama. Werebeasts can't be trusted. The elves were in an uproar, while the werebeasts silently gathered behind Faya, ready to fight. No one expected things to escalate so quickly. Think Nervalin's offhand use of the human slur had provoked such an intense reaction from Faya. Hey, alright, I won't say it again. Can you take your hand away now? Think Nervalin forced a smile through her cold sweat, the killing intent in Faya's eyes making her feel the shadow of death looming over her. Let it not happen again. Only after more than 10 seconds did Faya move her hand away, releasing her blood destruction and returning to her normal state. With this, everyone else finally breathed a sigh of relief. This could have turned into a disaster. But at the same time, the elves, led by Think Nervalin, were left with a huge question. This overwhelmingly powerful werebeast Blue-Eye's husband is a human. And not just any human, but one she's convinced will defeat the god of war someday. Is the werebeast race insane? Although the elves were full of speculation, none dared to voice their thoughts aloud, afraid of provoking Faya and being wiped out. So, what is your answer? Give me a reply quickly. If you go back on your word, you know what will happen. Faya's tone was now icy, her earlier politeness gone. Well. Think Nervalin's expression froze. The idea of joining an alliance led by a human was extremely hard to accept, especially one whose goal was the total destruction of the god of war. Think Nervalin wanted to stall for time, but she understood well that if she didn't answer now, the consequences could be dire. What are you, forest monkeys and beasts, talking about? Mind if I join in? Suddenly, a spatial fluctuation appeared overhead. Then, a perfect little leg emerged from the sky, and with those words, a figure appeared in the air. A shining halo above her head, and pure white wings outlined with glowing sigils, her beauty and features left no doubt. Flugel. Drumroll. Upon seeing the figure, Think Nervalin's face instantly turned pale. Werebeasts and elves together? Now, this is interesting. What were you all just discussing? Mind letting me in on it? I'm ever so curious. Drumroll gazed down with obvious interest at Nervalin and Faya. Run. I'll hold her off. Faya's face darkened as she called out to her kin. But, Faya-sama. The werebeasts protested, worry on their faces. Just go. If you stay, you'll only be in my way. Faya shouted, urgency in her tone. We understand. At this, the werebeasts, though unwilling, didn't hesitate further. They run away at their utmost speed. Go, now. Nervalin likewise didn't hesitate, quickly casting multiple mobility spells on herself and ordering the elves to retreat. In the blink of an eye, it had become a game of escape. Both elves and werebeasts, filled with hatred, fear, and anxiety, began to flee as fast as they could. Hey, you really think I'll let you get away? Drumroll's voice turned cold. As she spoke, she was already activating her spirit energy, preparing to cast a spell. Don't even think about it. Seeing this, Faya didn't hesitate, she immediately activated blood destruction, leaping through the air at Drumroll and smashing through space itself with a punch. Drumroll, faced with Faya's sudden assault, reacted quickly, using instant movement to evade. She looked at Faya with excitement and curiosity, as if she were a rare specimen. Oh, a werebeast strong enough to reach this level, truly a unique individual. Your head leader rank is at least LV.4. Would you mind letting me keep your head as a specimen? Drumroll's eyes glowed with madness as she giggled, openly obsessed. Humphrey. Faya's answer was another punch. Thus, a fierce aerial battle began to shake the skies. However, despite Faya's power, she was at a total disadvantage against Drumroll. Faya, though, didn't panic, she had already activated the spatial coordinates on her wedding ring. Meanwhile, earlier, as Faya aided the elves in fighting the Demonia, Riku and Shui had arrived at the ruined elf capital. The entire area was scorched, and the former beauty of the gardens was completely gone, leaving a desolate scene. Of course, this was nothing unusual on this war-torn planet. Riku, this place was destroyed by powerful forces. Based on the residual energy, it was likely a Fleagle's Heaven's strike. Shui's eyes flickered with data as she analyzed. Looks like my intuition back then was right. Riku patted Shui's head and nodded. Riku, why are we here? Shui tilted her head in confusion. You'll see soon enough, Riku smiled, pulling out the spirit formation disc. A few minutes later, he came to a certain patch of ground, tapping it lightly, an empty sound echoed. Riku's eyes brightened. He squatted down, brushed away the dust, dug a little, and pulled back a piece of metal. A hidden underground passage appeared before them. Alright, let's go. Taking Shui's hand, Riku led the way down. After a few minutes, they arrived in a wide, well-lit space. At its center stood the massive device. Floating at the core of the machine was a glowing egg, covered in intricate sorceress carvings and radiating an intense spirit energy. Riku, what's this? Shui asked in surprise. This is the elf's great weapon. Shui, you should know the trump card of the elf creator god, Kanath, right? Riku smiled gently, stroking her head. The trump card of the god Kanath is the Void Zero Protection, formed by merging 108 top-level spells, Shui answered without hesitation. That's right, the Void Zero Protection. This thing here was created by an elven genius, a prototype of Void Zero Protection. It may be weaker than the real thing, but it's still pretty powerful. But as it stands, it's incomplete. Riku eyed the glowing egg, speaking softly. Elves? Shui's eyes widened, data flickering across her gaze. To be able to create the creator god signature technique, the elves were really impressive. Is this your goal, Riku? Shui asked softly. You could say that, or you could say not really. It's not worth coming all this way for something incomplete, Riku said as he approached, laying his hand on the barrier. I don't really get it, Shui nodded, only half understanding. Riku shook his head and began communicating with the system in his mind. System, can this thing be recycled? Ding. Detected item Void Zero Protection, incomplete. Value, 25,000 exchange points. Recycle? Don't recycle. Can I store it in my inventory? Riku's eyes flickered. Yes, then put it in storage. Riku commanded. Understood. Instantly, the Void Zero Protection vanished from within the machine, leaving Shui stunned. ZZZZT. The action also triggered the room's traps. Arcs of electricity flared around Riku. Riku. Shui's voice was laced with worry. Don't come any closer, I'm fine. Just protect yourself, Riku said calmly. At the same time, he opened a sixth gate. The gate of view, deep green energy flaring around him as his spirit energy exploded out, shattering the magical traps. Killing Riku in this state with a bunch of traps was pure fantasy. If the elves could really do it, they wouldn't have been wiped out by Drumroll. As expected, After a short burst, everything faded away as if nothing had happened. Riku, are you alright? Shui relaxed, visibly relieved. Yeah, I'm fine. That thing just disappeared because I stored it, Riku explained. How did you store it? I can't analyze it, Shui asked, puzzled. Just treat it as my special spatial ability, Riku replied, stroking his face and smiling. The details of the system weren't for anyone to know, not even his closest allies. After comforting the still confused Shui, Riku headed to another corner of the secret room, where a platinum chest sat quietly. Let's hope for something good, he said, placing his hand on the chest. With a click, the chest opened, dazzling platinum light flooding out. A glowing orb lay inside. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained high-grade source of chaos energy. High-grade source of chaos energy? Not bad. This should boost my strength a lot, Riku smiled. Even the mid-grade had powered his unlimited blade works, fired light cannons, and let him open the 8 gates with huge boosts. The high-grade, especially from the platinum chest, should be a huge leap. Fuse? Yeah, fuse it. Riku replied. The system immediately got to work, merging the high-grade source of chaos energy into Riku's body. He felt an intense heat surge through him as his energy soared to new heights. Riku, your energy is rising, Shui said, eyes wide in surprise. She had detected Riku's energy rapidly increasing, finally surpassing even the Fleagle before leveling out. This feels great. Riku grinned, thrilled by the change. If he fought Zerolus again, even without Kyoka Suigetsu and Hanamaru, he was confident he wouldn't lose. You suddenly became stronger. I don't understand, Shui said, clearly troubled as she tried to reconcile the new data. You don't need to worry about the details. Just know that I'm not your average person, Riku said with a smile. Alright. Shui nodded, then looked up. Where to now? Riku began to ponder, but his eyes suddenly widened, a dangerous glint flashing within. Riku, what's wrong? Shui asked, sensing his mood shift. Fia's in trouble, Riku said seriously, his presence shaking the air. He grabbed Shui's hand, and a purple magic circle appeared beneath them. They vanished instantly. Drumroll sent wave after wave of magic toward Fia, grinning in delight. Each spell she cast was at least 10 times more powerful than the elf's own. Fia had no choice but to dodge in midair with her ghostly speed. Any single spell might not be fatal, but if even one landed, she'd be immobilized, and in a fight like this, that meant death. Close combat wasn't an option either. The Fleagle possessed a spatial ability known as Heavenly Shift that made them almost impossible to hit unless you could move faster than their reflexes and finish the fight in a single strike. That might work against an ordinary Fleagle, but against an outlier like Drumroll, it was a pipe dream. All Fia could do was dodge. And with every desperate evasion, her stamina was being rapidly depleted. She sometimes had to use her fists to break apart the large-scale magic attacks, which only made things worse. From a distance, Nervalin watched the sky, hesitating as she witnessed the battle. In the end, she didn't go back to help. Even if Fia had saved them, she was still an enemy. Especially after Fia had threatened her earlier. Suddenly, Nervalin, as well as some of the fleeing were beasts, froze in shock. Drumroll narrowed her eyes, pausing her spellcasting to look toward a certain spot in the sky. Fia's expression changed, at first relieved, then instantly pouting and sulking, cheeks puffed out in annoyance. Drumroll, fancy meeting you again. Wasn't chasing me last time enough? Now you've set your sights on my precious Fia. You really make me want to pin you down and give you a good beating. Suddenly, Riku appeared at Fia's side, fixing Drumroll with a fierce glare. Chapter 36. Thank goodness, Lord Riku is here. With Lord Riku around, Princess will be safe. The moment Riku appeared, all the fleeing were-beasts showed ecstatic expressions, stopping in their tracks and staring up fanatically at Riku, who was standing in the sky. Riku? That human? So strong. Hearing this, Nervalin couldn't help but gasp, staring in shock at Riku above. Her detection magic confirmed the truth. Just in terms of energy, this human Riku could rival Drumroll. Not to mention, that bizarre move just now was undoubtedly a spatial ability. To Nervalin, this was inconceivable. After all, everyone knew how weak humans were and how little spirit energy they had within them. No wonder the were-beast princess would marry a monkey. A human. Nervalin fell silent. The human she once looked down on was now powerful enough to overwhelm them. It really didn't feel good. Her face stung from the slap. On Riku's side, Fia's red eyes were fixed on Shui, whose hand Riku was holding. Her eyes were filled with anger and grievance. But Fia knew now wasn't the time for jealousy, so she forced herself to hold back her emotions. Still, from the way her tail drooped, it was clear her mood wasn't good. Shui, for her part, glanced at Fia with a barely noticeable frown. Of course, Riku noticed Fia's mood, But this wasn't the time for explanations, so he simply patted her head gently to comfort her. Riku's eyes remained on Jibril the entire time. Hey, interesting. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Back then, you deliberately lured me into a head-on clash, then used the explosion's aftershock and spatial abilities to escape. Even I couldn't detect you, Jibril said, watching Riku as her expression shifted from surprise to joy, then to anger, and finally coldness. Clearly, Jibril had realized she'd been played. Absolutely right. Too bad there's no reward for you, Riku applauded, looking satisfied. Hey. But honestly, I'm quite glad you're still alive. This way, I get another fine specimen for my collection. And you seem to have gotten much stronger, enough for me to rate your leader level at LV.6, Jibril said, her eyes shining with madness again. And if you add that ex machina by your side, and a little were-beast girl, it's a huge haul for me. Jibril said excitedly. Humphrey, outlier Jibril, do you think you can defeat both my husband and me at once? Faya couldn't help but step forward, shouting angrily. Husband? Human, you wouldn't happen to be Olakan, would you? Jibril gave Riku a weird look. Shui's body froze for a moment as well. That's none of your business. Jibril, I'm in a very bad mood with you right now. I really want to give you a good beating, so prepare yourself, Riku said, stepping forward to stand between Faya and Shui, his voice serious. Faya, step back. Go protect our people, and don't let the elves escape. Shui, help Faya. I'll take care of Jibril myself. Understood. Faya hesitated for a second, glanced at Shui, then nodded and shot off toward her kin, breaking the sound barrier as she went. She wasn't one for indecision. She didn't know what Riku had done, but he was clearly much stronger now, so taking on Jibril alone wasn't a problem. Shui nodded to Riku as well, then followed. I let you get away last time, this time, you won't be so lucky. But first, can I ask your name? Jibril didn't stop Faya and Shui from leaving, but simply smiled as she spoke. Riku Dola, Riku said flatly. Riku, huh? I'll remember it. Now let's fight. Jibril nodded, her face suddenly turning serious as a terrifying killing intent radiated from her, sending chills down everyone's spine. As she finished speaking, Jibril vanished from where she stood, appearing behind Riku with a pitch-black energy sword in her hand, slashing directly at his neck. Fast. Precise. Lethal. Clearly, after what happened last time, Jibril knew better than to give Riku any opportunity for tricks. A swift kill was the right move. Riku shifted his body sideways, Zanpakuto appearing in his hand, lightly parrying Jibril's sword. Jibril frowned, but before she could attack again, Riku swept a leg at her abdomen. A powerful gust forced Jibril to gather energy and block, her face changing slightly. Boom. The sheer force exploded, and while it didn't shatter Jibril's energy shield, it still sent her flying. Jibril quickly stabilized herself in midair, staring at Riku in disbelief. As if she was seeing the impossible. Your energy matches mine, and even your physical strength is now stronger than a regular were-beast using blood destruction. What did you do these past few days? Jibril asked, her eyes burning with fascination. You think I'd tell you? Riku answered coolly. As I thought, you're quite the anomaly, your whole body radiates an unbelievable aura. Say, would you like to make a deal with me? Jibril suddenly offered. A deal? Riku replied, amused. That's right, a deal. Even though I'm a fleagle, to you humans I must look like a great beauty, right? So you can do whatever you want with my body. You can have your way with me. Jibril gave a crazed, suggestive look. Play with my body as much as you want. Oh? That's interesting. What's your condition? Riku raised an eyebrow, half smiling. I only have one condition after you're done with me, let me have your body for my research. Honestly, just keeping your head as a trophy would be a waste. Jibril giggled creepily, even drooling at the mouth. The look in her eyes suggested she couldn't wait to strip Riku down for research. Do I look like the type to risk my life for beauty? There's a whole forest waiting for me. Why would I hang myself on just one tree? Riku shot her a look like she was an idiot. Forest, huh? Are you aiming for a harem? Jibril asked Riku with a teasing smile, her gaze fixed on him. Of course, a harem is a man's romance. Riku shrugged, declaring proudly. Haha, you really are interesting. But how unfortunate. In that case, I guess I'll have to kill you and take your head as a trophy after all. Jibril's face showed genuine regret. If you want it, you have to take it. Riku replied indifferently. Gate of Pain, fourth gate, open. With a deep shout, Riku was suddenly engulfed in a green aura, his presence surging to new heights. At this point, Riku's fourth gate was already equivalent to his old sixth gate. As soon as the gate of pain opened, Riku stomped on the air and rushed toward Jibril at blinding speed. You can still get stronger? Riku, you're making me more and more excited. Noticing the change in Riku, Jibril became increasingly enthusiastic, quickly casting several spells at once. In an instant, raging fire serpents, dazzling lightning dragons, and storms filled the sky, all attacking Riku at once. The resulting turbulence distorted the very space, with light and air currents churning wildly. Gate of Limit, 5th Gate, open. Unfazed by the attacks, Riku calmly opened yet another gate. In a flash, his power soared even higher. He threw a punch, the air itself compressed into a cannonball, violently blasting apart the incoming magic, and even hollowing out a massive hole in the distant mountains, sending debris flying everywhere. Electric sparks, flames, and twisted winds dissipated into the sky, forming an unnatural storm that forced even the distant observers like Thinkner Valen and the others to defend themselves with magic. This left Think's heart full of shock and frustration as she watched the aerial battle. Jibril, a Fleagle from another race, wielded magic stronger than any elven sorceress, while Riku, without mercy, shattered all her powerful spells with his fists, one by one. These two really are monsters. Think found herself at a loss for words as she watched the spectacle unfold. The rest of the elves trembled with fear, even being grazed by the aftershocks would mean instant death for them. On the Were Beast side, while just as shocked, they weren't afraid. Instead, their eyes burned with fanatical admiration for Riku, their princess's husband. As expected, my husband is getting stronger. Now he can take on Jibril, the Fleagle exemplar, head-to-head with just the 5th Gate. Faya gazed proudly at the distant battlefield, her clothes fluttering, her face glowing with pride. By the way, why is this ex-machina following my husband? Faya frowned as she glanced at Shui, who was also intently watching Riku. Shui turned and looked back at Faya. The two stared at each other, neither speaking, and the atmosphere turned awkward. Riku, you're really fascinating. Well then, how about this spell? Jibril locked eyes with Riku, brimming with fighting spirit. As she spoke, a powerful surge of energy burst out. The black-gray clouds above parted unnaturally, and a fireball fell from the sky. No, it wasn't a fireball, it was a colossal meteor. If it hit, it would devastate everything for tens of thousands of meters around. Both the Were Beast and the elves in the area would be wiped out completely. Ultimate spell. Heavenly Meteor. If you can catch it, try. Jibril's confidence was unwavering. She's crazy, this one is insane. Thinkner Valen said in despair, staring up at the meteor, cursing. Jibril, don't get too cocky. Riku glared at the meteor above, his expression turning cold as he shouted, Gate of View, 6th Gate, open. The aura around him turned deep green. Boom. Riku punched upward. In an instant, his violent punch shattered everything in its path, smashing straight into the meteor. Crack. The meteor cracked with an astonishing sound, then shattered into countless pieces that rained down to the ground. For ordinary people, even the fragments would be lethal, but for the Were Beast and elves, as long as their luck held, they would likely be fine. One punch blasted the meteor. This feat left Think and the other elves dumbstruck, while even the Were Beast were stunned. Even Faya, who knew Riku well, was left speechless, and Jibril was no exception. Her grand spell had been brutally shattered by sheer force, an awe-inspiring sight. Jibril, what are you looking at? The next instant, Riku flashed in front of Jibril and swept his leg at her. Eternal Fourth Blessing, Kurayance. At that moment, Jibril's expression changed, instantly casting several overlapping defensive spells. The Eternal Fourth Blessing was the elves' ultimate defense and sealing magic. It had once blocked Jibril's attacks during her invasion of the elven homeland. Jibril had taken an interest in this spell and researched it. Although it hadn't withstood her Heaven's Smite in the past, that didn't mean it was weak. The level of magic is one thing, but who uses it is another. Different hands create different results. Instead of using the God of War's spells, Jibril relied on the Eternal Fourth Blessing at that critical moment, distrusting her creator's magic for this particular defense. Her intuition proved right. Crack. In the blink of an eye, Riku's full-powered kick smashed into Jibril's Eternal Fourth Blessing. With a thunderous crack, the defensive spell shattered. Jibril was sent flying, coughing up blood in the air. Most of the impact was absorbed, so her injuries were not serious. If she had used a Fleagle spell instead, she would have been gravely wounded or worse. Cough, cough. What a powerful kick, you've once again shattered my expectations. Jibril coughed, but her eyes burned even brighter with fanaticism. Hey, there's plenty more for you to be surprised about. Riku smirked coldly, vanishing from where he stood as the air beneath his feet exploded with tremendous pressure. This terrifying speed was beyond most Fleagle. Even before they could react and use teleport, Riku would have already struck. But as an exemplar Flugel, Jibril's instincts and combat experience far surpassed ordinary Flugel. She adapted in the blink of an eye, instantly activating teleport to evade Riku's attack. This time, she had no intention of taking it head-on after all, even a dozen layers of eternal fourth blessing had been shattered so easily. Trying to endure it would be suicide. Boom. Riku's punch landed where Jibril had just been, blasting apart several distant mountains. Debris soared skyward, blocking out the sun and shaking the very earth. That was close. But in the end, this is still my win. Jibril reappeared behind Riku, spirit energy pouring from her wings as she rapidly cast several spells. Once again, she conjured the eternal fourth blessing, the elf's highest level defensive and sealing magic. Oh, is that so? The Riku she targeted turned to look at Jibril, now sealed within a dozen overlapping barriers, with a sly smile on his face. Sensing something was off, Jibril felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of danger. In that instant, Riku's real body ghosted behind her, his Zanpakuto gleaming, wreathed in spirit energy, slashing straight toward her exposed neck without the slightest mercy. At the critical moment, Jibril's pupils contracted, and she immediately teleported into the layers of eternal fourth blessing she had just set up. Slash. Clang. Crack. A spray of blood filled the air as Riku's Zanpakuto sliced through several layers of eternal fourth blessing before finally being stopped. You can even react to this. Impressing, Riku praised, his golden eyes locked on Jibril, who had proactively chosen to use her own sealing spells for defense. Illusion? Jibril muttered, pressing her hand to her bleeding neck as she quickly cast a healing spell. She watched Riku with wariness and curiosity. Correct. So here's a kick for you, too. Riku grinned, his right leg lashing out like a whip and crashing into the shield. Boom. A shockwave rippled outward, shaking Thinkner Valen and the others in the distance. The remaining protective barriers shattered, but in that brief moment, Jibril teleported again, reappearing thousands of meters away. As expected, you really are fascinating. Fighting you reminds me of my battles with Zeralis the White Dragonia. Every moment is a dance with death, and the thrill is intoxicating. Jibril's eyes glowed with mad excitement, her face flushed as she watched Riku. I want to collect your head now more than ever. Zeralis. Riku's gaze flickered with surprise, realizing for the first time that the Dragonia Jibril was always challenging was Zeralis. Enough talk, let's finish this. But Riku didn't linger on it, instead issuing his challenge calmly. Riku vanished again, his punch shaking the very sky as he attacked Jibril. But now, fully aware of Riku's power, Jibril was determined not to give him another chance. She teleported once more, high into the sky, letting his blow hit only empty air. That teleportability is so troublesome, Riku thought, frowning. Even though he had Shambhala, it couldn't compare to teleport's speed and flexibility. Landing a decisive blow before Jibril could react was proving nearly impossible. That human has the upper hand, but neither side can finish it. That's the power of the Flugel, immense strength and broken space magic, Thinkner Valen observed with a bitter smile. This battle was eye-opening, a human overwhelming a Flugel exemplar was simply unthinkable. My husband. Even Fia stopped glaring at Shui, instead gazing up at the sky with concern. Don't worry. Riku will win. He even defeated a Dragonia before, and that was before he got this strong, Shui said softly, her words calm and confident. Dragonia. The Werebeast and elves all gasped in shock. To think Riku had grown strong enough to defeat a Dragonia in just a day, how could it be real? As expected of my husband. I shouldn't have worried, Fia whispered, admiration shining in her eyes. Jibril is running away all you know how to do? Riku taunted. He could have finished it with Kyoka Suigetsu or the Seventh Gate, but the idea of ending things with a single, unsatisfying blow annoyed him. Taunting again? This is the second time. The first time, you tried to run, now you want to provoke me. Fate is full of twists, isn't it? Jibril hovered above, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. I'm truly curious, how did you grow 100 times stronger in just a few days? If you defeat me, maybe I'll tell you. But at your current level, that's impossible, Riku replied breezily. Ha, so you're underestimating me. This time, I'll use 100% of my power. Jibril laughed as violent spirit energy exploded around her. She stretched out her hand, and the air began to roar and tremble. That energy compressed into a massive black sphere, crackling with terrifying black lightning. Just looking at it was enough to make one's heart tremble. This is, Final Strike, my improved version of Heavenly Smite. If you can take it, then go ahead and try. Jibril shouted with wild confidence. The wind howled, and it felt like the entire world was bearing down on them. Heavenly Smite, this was the Flugel's ultimate technique, pouring all their power into a single, spellless attack, pure, unfiltered energy. Because of its purity, Its destructive force was immense. Normally, after unleashing Heavenly Smite with no restraint, a Fleagle would be so drained that their body would revert to the form of a little girl. It was the total concentration of their existence in a single strike. Even the Dragonia had to treat Heavenly Smite with utmost caution. But Drumroll, as an exemplar among Fleagle, had started out the weakest, far below average. What set her apart was her relentless learning. She absorbed the techniques of other races, filling in her own shortcomings, steadily rising from the weakest to the very top of her race. While most Fleagle scorned elven magic, Drumroll had actively hunted elves to obtain their grimoires. The eternal fourth blessing she now wielded had even surpassed the defensive magics bestowed by the god of war. Now, Drumroll had refined Heavenly Smite into an even more devastating technique, Final Strike. Not only was its energy purer, but she had fused other forces into it, making the destructive power utterly surpass the original. Final Strike. Thanks to hearing enhancement magic, Valen heard Drumroll's words clearly. Her face went pale, the overwhelming energy above making it hard to breathe. Drumroll had destroyed their capital with a single Heavenly Smite, and now she was unleashing an even greater ultimate move. Spirit reaction, severe. Recommend immediate retreat, Shui reported calmly, data flashing in her eyes. Run. Faya didn't hesitate, she immediately led the retreat. Damn it, we're running too. The elves, swallowing their pride, followed as the mere aftershocks from the monsters' battle threatened to annihilate them. Final Strike, huh? Interesting. In that case, let me show you something fun as a courtesy. Riku sheathed his Zanpakuto and laughed boldly. If he was going to defeat Drumroll, he'd do it thoroughly. Though he could simply absorb the Final Strike with Hanamaru's power, that wouldn't demonstrate his own strength. Seventh Gate. Gate of Shock, open. Riku roared. A pale blue aura exploded from him, veins bulging, his strength reaching its peak. This power spike. Riku, you're just full of surprises. Drumroll's spirit surged as her passion ignited. It's like your potential is limitless. Time after time, Riku kept surpassing his limits, shocking Drumroll again and again, the very experience she craved most. Final Strike. Drumroll raised the black spear, swinging it down with wild abandon. Zrun-up. The very fabric of space seemed to rip, the black spear left a ragged scar as it hurtled toward Riku at impossible speed. Hyrutora. At the same instant, Riku's fists blurred with speed. A gigantic blue tiger materialized, roaring as it soared skyward. It seemed to last an eternity, but less than 1,000th of a second had passed. The two ultimate attacks crashed together. Zrap. Prownek. For a heartbeat, the sky wailed, time seeming to stop. Rings of white energy rippled from the clash point, vaporizing everything in their path. Lightning arced, black energy raged, and the blue tiger roared, devouring the black sphere. Boom. At last, the Final Strike trembled madly, unable to withstand the blue tiger, and detonated in a massive explosion that engulfed everything within 1,000,000 meters. Within that radius, mountains collapsed, the earth caved in, scorched marks spread everywhere, clouds were ripped apart, rivers vaporized, everything was annihilated by the shockwave. Fai and Shui, fleeing with the elves, joined Valen's group, rapidly casting defensive magic. The remaining elves, led by Valen, didn't care about the cost, they desperately layered eternal fourth blessings and other defensive magics. Their only goal: survive the aftermath. Even though the center of the blast was 1,000 meters in the air and they were tens of kilometers away, they still had to give it everything just to stay alive. Such was the terror of a battle between upper tier races. For any 6th rank or lower being, just being near this would mean certain death. Even elves, so proud compared to humans, didn't fare much better. In contrast, the werebeasts had it easy, shielded inside the elves' barriers, and with Fai and Shui's help, they were unscathed. Of course, this was all within Riku's calculations. He'd never risk harming his wives just for the thrill of combat. Seconds later, as the aftershocks faded and the smoke and dust cleared, a massive crater remained, surrounded by scorched, lifeless land as far as the eye could see. Monsters. Valen was pale, gasping for breath, her heart pounding. She'd burned through over 90% of her strength just to withstand the shockwave, and many of her kin had nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Where's my husband? Faya, ending her blood destruction, looked up anxiously at the sky, searching for any sign. What happened? Who won? Valen's expression changed as she looked skyward as well. The sheer energy of this duel was staggering. Even Drumroll, if she had survived with any power, could slaughter them all a dozen times over. At that moment, desperately hoped Riku had won. He might not have been a true ally, but he wasn't an enemy either. Probably. Riku's fine. He won. Shui said calmly, looking up at a certain spot in the sky. My husband won? That's great. Faya beamed with pride and relief. think Nervalen, too, finally breathed a sigh of relief. But when they saw what was really happening in the sky, they were all left dumbstruck. Chapter 37. High above, both Riku and Drumroll were safe, standing together inside a pale blue barrier, though the scene was oddly bizarre. "What is my husband doing?" Faya wondered aloud. Hearing this, everyone just shook their heads, totally baffled. They'd all assumed the fight would end with one of them dead. But then, Faya, think Nervalen, and the others widened their eyes in shock as Riku suddenly pulled little Drumroll into his arms and began spanking her. Why little? Because Drumroll's body had, bizarrely, reverted to that of a child. Drumroll actually got her butt smacked. Serves her right, think Nervalen was the first to react, whispering gleefully. She also felt a newfound respect for Riku, greater than ever. Who else would dare to spank a Fleagle, and an exemplar at that? Probably no one. At that moment, think Nervalen had already forgotten she used to think of Riku as just a primitive monkey. My husband really is a handful. Don't tell me he's thinking of. Faya pouted, cheeks puffed out in annoyance, her crimson eyes occasionally darting to Shui. It was certainly possible whether it was her, or Shui, or now Drumroll, they all looked like young girls. Humphrey. Such a pervert. My husband really is hopeless, Faya grumbled, stomping the ground so hard that cracks began to spread. Noticing Faya's attitude, her werebeasts exchanged glances but sensibly kept quiet. This wasn't something they could get involved in. Hey. Don't go overboard. Just because you saved me doesn't mean you can spank me. Drumroll, still in the sky, clutched her sore backside, protesting angrily. Just now, as the explosion was about to engulf her, Riku had reached her in the nick of time, saving her. His speed was terrifying. She wondered if, had he gone all out from the start, she'd have even had time to react. You're upset? Shouldn't I be the angry one? You chased me, then targeted those close to me. I told you I'd pay you back, you stupid chicken. Riku rolled up his sleeves, giving Drumroll's bottom another resounding smack. Ugh. Drumroll grunted from the fresh pain. Hee, but tell me, why did you save me? Are you really offering your body for research? Or are you just a lilicon, charmed by my current form? As she spoke, Drumroll giggled and nuzzled into Riku's chest, as if seeking comfort. Only in your dreams. I just thought letting you off easy would be too good for you, Riku said with a wry smile. Since ancient times, the winner takes all. Since you lost today, that makes you my spoils, you're mine now, understand? Riku said coldly. Drumroll's potential was impressive, having her as a servant would be useful. If that's how it is, I suppose I have no choice. Losers are losers. In that case, I'll become your servant, free for you to play with however you wish, Drumroll said, giggling in that signature, borderline crazy way that only she could manage. Idiot, don't make it sound so weird, Riku muttered, exasperated. But you submitted so quickly. I admit, I'm a little surprised, Riku continued, looking amused. Like you said, the loser belongs to the winner. If I'd won, I'd have dragged you back for research, dead or alive, no difference, Drumroll answered, her eyes shining as she met Riku's gaze. I mean, I'm surprised you'd so easily abandon your creator, the god of war Artosh, Riku clarified, raising an eyebrow. TCH, that old man just sits on his throne all day pondering what it means to be strongest, so boring. I only respect him because he created me, Drumroll replied, her voice full of disdain. It was a shocking statement. Normally, all Fleagle revered the god of war absolutely, to question him was to invite destruction at the hands of the entire race. Yet Drumroll defied that with ease, doubting even her own creator. That, too, was why Artosh tolerated her. He was curious about her potential and let her do as she pleased. Oh? Riku's interest was piqued. That's a pretty good reason, but I bet there's more to it. You realize what it means to side with me and abandon the Fleagle, don't you? Hey, of course. But before that, let me ask, what's your goal, Master? Drumroll smiled, looking up at him with infatuation. To become stronger, slay the god of war, become the one true god, and end this endless war, Riku answered without hesitation. I knew it. You really do have infinite potential, Master. I can see your blazing ambition in your eyes. That's more than enough reason for me to follow you. How's that for an explanation? Drumroll said, a crazed smile spreading across her face. In 3 days, he'd gone from weakling to someone who could beat her head on. This terrifying growth was something she'd never experienced with Artosh. I see. Riku nodded naturally, a confident smile on his lips. You made the right choice. Please take care of me from now on, Master, Drumroll said sweetly. At the same time, the geometric halo around her head shifted to the back of Fleagle's gesture of loyalty. Yeah. Riku nodded, letting go of Drumroll. Oh, right, Master, now that I'm your servant, you can do whatever you want to my body. After all, you love little girls, don't you? Drumroll said, grinning madly. Smack. Before she could finish, Riku gave her another firm slap on the butt. Idiot angel, knock it off. Master, I'm done. Please don't hit me anymore, it's already swollen. Drumroll whimpered, clutching her sore bottom, her face full of grievance. Humphrey, serves you right for running your mouth. Riku raised an eyebrow, speaking calmly. Of course, he'd never admit that he was starting to enjoy it. After all, it felt pretty good. By the way, Master, the Werebeast girl and the Ex Machina are glaring at us. So scary. Drumroll's eyes sparkled mischievously as she lay against Riku like a lazy bear, saying it on purpose. Riku couldn't help but feel a bit helpless. Drumroll really never missed an opportunity to take advantage. He strongly suspected that this Flugel might actually sneak in to attack him at night. To have tamed such an obsessive, lovesick Flugel, he couldn't help but feel that it was a bit troublesome. But Drumroll was right, they couldn't keep Fi and Shui waiting any longer. Thinking about it made Riku's head ache. He still needed to explain things to Fi about Shui, and now there was Drumroll as well. Plus, there was Kura waiting for him, too. This harem thing really wasn't easy. After all, girls weren't made of wood, they got jealous and emotional, and no matter how mature they were, that wouldn't change. But no matter how much trouble it was, he had to face it. Riku didn't hesitate any longer and carried Drumroll back to Fi and the others. Why did he have to carry her? Because Drumroll was putting on a pitiful act, saying she had no strength left. Of course, he knew she was faking it, but he still had no choice but to carry her. Husband, I'm so glad you're all right. But her. As soon as Riku came down, Fi rushed to him, clutching his sleeve, first expressing concern for him and then staring hard at Drumroll with open hostility in her eyes. Shui was fine, but as for Drumroll, Fi really couldn't accept her. Riku, Lilicon. Shui also looked at Riku, quietly mumbling. On the other side, Thinknervalen and the other weakened elves also watched. They wanted to leave, but didn't dare. Now, seeing this scene, their faces were all strange. Was this going to turn into a love triangle scene after the battle? But the fact that Drumroll, of all people, had been so obediently tamed by this human. Thinknervalen's eyes were still full of shock and disbelief, glancing back and forth between Riku and Drumroll. Ahem, Drumroll lost to me. From now on, she's my servant. Riku put Drumroll down and gently patted Fi and Shui on the head, speaking as gently as he could. Humphrey, playboy. Fi muttered under her breath. Although she spoke quietly, everyone present could hear her. Riku pretended not to notice, keeping his expression unchanged. Husband, I don't think she's trustworthy. If she learns where our base is and reports it to the other Flugel, it could be dangerous. Fi looked up, her face serious. Oh my, little Werebeast, who are you calling untrustworthy? Drumroll smiled as she looked at Fi. Who can say for sure? Fi retorted without hesitation. Alright, enough arguing. Riku, getting a headache, tapped both girls on the head. Let's take care of business first. As he spoke, Riku slowly shifted his gaze toward the elves in the distance. Fi, Shui, Drumroll, and the other Werebeasts did the same, eyeing the elves like wolves staring at lambs. Although Drumroll didn't know the full story, based on the situation, she could guess Riku's intentions, and she was very interested to see what her master would do with the elves. Riku. Sir, what do you need from us? Thinknervalen finally summoned her courage, taking a step forward, her scalp tingling. Now, they were like prey being eyed by predators, one wrong move would spell disaster. Husband, when I was negotiating with the elves, they were very uncooperative. Even after I saved them, they showed hostility. When facing Drumroll, they didn't hesitate to throw me to the wolves, even though they could have helped. Fi stared hard at Thinknervalen, her tone direct and blunt. In my opinion, they never intended to join us. Fi's face was expressionless. Fi now had nothing but dislike for the elves. To insult Riku was a crime that could not be forgiven, and their attitude left her completely disappointed. Even if the elves joined, Fi doubted they'd ever be truly loyal. Oh? Is that so? How interesting. Riku's body tensed, his eyes flashed with killing intent, and his smile made Thinknervalen's scalp prickle with fear. And no, you're misunderstanding. That's not our intention, Thinknervalen stammered, hurriedly trying to explain. But her words sounded dry because everything Fi said was true. You think you can fool a Werebeast's senses? In a flash, Riku appeared right in front of Thinknervalen, looking down at her with a half-smile. In that instant, Thinknervalen was engulfed by the shadow of death, her heart full of terror, and she couldn't muster even the slightest resistance. The other elves also looked on, full of fear, anger, and a mess of emotions, but not one dared speak up or move. They had all seen just how terrifying Riku was. Any resistance would only mean instant annihilation, no question. Riku sir, we really weren't thinking straight at the time. The situation was urgent, and we didn't have time to consider everything. Now, I'm willing to lead the elves in joining your alliance and fighting the god of war together. Think Nervalent said bitterly. In the past, she looked down on this monkey. This human. Now she could only lower her head, calling him sir with humility. Fate truly worked in mysterious ways. She had doubted Riku before, after all, the god of war was the most powerful being. How could a human possibly oppose him? But after witnessing Riku's power firsthand, a sliver of hope grew in her heart. After all, their own creator god had also been killed by the god of war, and they carried an unending grudge. For their own creator gods, all these races felt a deep, sincere reverence. God of forest, Kanath, had been killed by the god of war, his divinity devoured. The elves had thought about revenge, but the gap in strength was too great. Forget killing the god of war, just facing one of his subordinates, Fleugel, was enough to send them fleeing. Maybe that thing could really kill a Fleugel, but to think of defeating the god of war was still just a pipe dream. Yet with Riku's arrival, even though Nervalent felt humiliated and oppressed, a small sliver of hope began to stir. Just as Drumroll had said, this human might truly possess infinite potential. Riku-sama, as long as you don't treat us elves as pawns to be thrown away at will, we will join your alliance and become a blade in your hand to help you slay the god of war. Nervalent took a deep breath and spoke seriously. PFFT. No sooner had finished than Drumroll burst into laughter, looking at her with blatant mockery. Fi also pursed her lips slightly, looking at with disdain. Drumroll, what do you mean by that? What's so funny? Think's expression froze, her anger rising. Oh my, I just think you elves are a bunch of ignorant and arrogant country bumpkins, Drumroll sneered, not showing the slightest courtesy. I think you don't really understand your situation, Fi said coldly. Huge difference in level, Shui commented in her usual cryptic way. You. Hearing this, Think's face changed, and she became extremely uneasy, nervously looking up at the expressionless Riku. You elves seem to have misunderstood something. I'm not asking or inviting you to join the alliance. I'm ordering you, Riku said indifferently. These domineering words left Think completely stunned. The other elves were even more furious. Order. Isn't that a bit too much? Think bit her lip, and clenched her teeth. Being ordered to join the alliance was a total humiliation, a loss of all dignity. They would always be used as expendable pieces. How could she accept that? Everyone makes their own choices. The choices you make decide your fate, Riku replied coldly. The power of the elves isn't necessary for me right now. If you won't accept my order, I won't force you. Hearing this, Think and the other elves froze. Even the were beasts were stunned. Only Drumroll and Fire remained unfazed, with a hint of fascination, while Shui's expression didn't change, just her eyes flickered. Lord Riku, do you really mean it? Think asked anxiously. Something felt off. Could this man really be so easygoing? If you don't accept my order, that's fine. But to prevent you elves from stabbing me in the back, I might as well wipe you all out. Not a single one left alive. Riku's face was expressionless. What? Think's expression froze, falling from heaven to hell in an instant. This was pure tyranny, a dictator who gave no one a chance to live. This man would absolutely go through with it. Think-sama, let's fight him. Who cares who he is, let's fight. In an instant, all the elves couldn't bear the humiliation any longer and shouted angrily. Silence, all of you. But Think snapped out of it and roared in frustration. Her shout instantly silenced the elves. We are willing to join the alliance and obey your orders. Think said bitterly, her face full of resignation. For the sake of her people, she had no other choice. Think-sama. Think-sama, there's no need to fear him, we still have. As soon as she finished, the elves grew agitated again, refusing to accept such humiliation. Hey, are you talking about this thing? The principle is a bit complex, but if we give it to Shui's ex machina, I guarantee they can finish it even better than you. Riku sneered and took out the incomplete Void Zero protection from his inventory. That's the Void Zero protection, how did you? Seeing the giant glowing egg, Think's eyes went wide with shock. The other elves turned pale as well. Their trump card was gone, what was left to fight with? Please forgive our rudeness, Riku-sama. We elves are willing to join your alliance with all our people and follow your orders, unconditionally. Think dropped to her knees, offering up her loyalty without hesitation. To obey. To submit. The other elves also knelt, faces full of despair, lowering their proud heads. With their trump card gone, what was left to resist with? Just as Riku said, they really were expendable. Very good. From today on, you're the maid for me and Faya. Riku nodded without expression, placing his hand on Think's head and giving the order. I understand, Master. Think's face changed over and over, finally going slack as she replied weakly. Good. Riku nodded in satisfaction, then turned and walked back to Fi and the others, leaving behind a group of elves who looked as if all their spirit had been sucked out, kneeling on the ground. Hee, Master, so domineering and cool. I'm totally obsessed. How about you punish me some more, too? Drumroll drooled as she giggled like a maniac. Humphrey, Riku is my husband, you're just his servant, don't even think about seducing my husband. Fi pouted, grabbing Riku's hand and staring hard at Drumroll. As my husband's servant, you're also my servant. I order you to stay away from him. I'm just Master's servant, I don't care about anyone else's orders. You little werebeast, you still have a long way to go, Drumroll snorted. Their gazes clashed, and sparks seemed to fly. Riku, I want to play a game. Shui spoke up at just the right moment, making both Fi and Drumroll eye her suspiciously. Play a game? What kind of game? Now that was a big question. Ahem, let's go home first. With all this spirit energy flying around, it's not safe to stay here, Riku coughed. If I learn the real nature of that game, she'd definitely raise hell. As for Drumroll, well, she'd probably do everything she could to get in on the game too. Humphrey. Stupid husband. Fi pouted and grumbled. Her instincts told her it definitely wasn't that simple. Chapter 38. After trekking over mountains for half a day, Riku and his group finally arrived at the Werebeast settlement, the journey filled with the noisy voices of 3 little girls. Along the way, a group of Werebeasts warmly welcomed Riku. Although some were still afraid of Drumroll, seeing Riku holding down the rowdy Drumroll's head, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As for the elves, they all looked like defeated roosters, heads drooped, not daring to meet the eyes of the Werebeasts around them. Nervalin quietly stood behind Riku and Fi, her expression a bit dazed, her eyes flickering as she looked at Riku's back, lost in thought. Soon after, the elves were settled in, while Riku and the others planned to go to the hot springs. Riku, let's bathe together. At the entrance, Shui took Riku's hand and said quietly. Hey. Shui, men and women are supposed to bathe separately. Hearing this, Fi immediately got flustered, grabbing Shui's hand in protest. As Riku's wife, even she felt embarrassed to bathe with him at a time like this, yet Shui had just said it outright, as if she was going to steal her man in public. Bathing together with Master. How delightful, Drumroll said, wearing her signature silly smile. Stupid Fleugil, know your limits. Seeing Drumroll join in, Fi glared and shouted angrily. Humphrey, little werebeast, it's not right to monopolize him. Be careful, or Master might abandon you. He said himself he wants a harem, he won't give up the whole forest for just one tree, Drumroll retorted without backing down. Hearing that, Fi looked at Riku with aggrieved puppy eyes, as if about to be abandoned. This gave Riku a headache. Why did things keep turning into a love triangle battlefield? Ahem, let's all just go to the hot springs together, they're big enough for everyone. Riku awkwardly coughed, patting Fi and Shui's heads, trying to stay calm. Humphrey. Stupid Riku. Fi pouted angrily at this. But even though she seemed angry, her body was honest. She rushed into the hot spring ahead of everyone. She didn't even call him husband anymore. Looks like he'd have to find a chance to smooth Fi's feelings. Riku rubbed his face and shook his head. Alright, let's go in too. With that, Riku took Shui's hand and walked in. Drumroll followed with her usual silly grin. Am I supposed to go in too? Nervalin, trailing behind, looked at their backs with a conflicted expression, speechless. Oh well, I'm a maid now after all, she sighed and followed them in. Now that she was a maid, she had to have a maid's resolve. For a maid, sharing a hot spring with her master was basically a reward. Forget just this, even if something more intimate happened, a maid wouldn't have the right to refuse. Can Ex Machina even bathe? Aren't you afraid water will get inside? As Nervalin entered, the scene made her mouth twitch. Drumroll was staring at Shui's body like a maniac. Meanwhile, Fi was pouting, acting like a spoiled child, ignoring Riku. Why am I suffering because of these people? Nervalin felt like crying, silently wrapping herself in a towel and finding a spot to soak. Instantly, her body relaxed for the first time in ages. As for serving Riku, she wasn't about to bring it up herself, she wasn't a masochist. Shui is waterproof. This is nothing, Riku explained to Drumroll as Fi ignored him, shaking his head helplessly. But Master, how did you manage to win over an Ex Machina like Shui? The Ex Machina race is so united and troublesome. Drumroll asked, full of curiosity. When fate brings people together, it just happens. It's all destiny, Riku answered with mystical flair. I don't really get it, But it sounds impressive. Jibril grinned. But, Master, you really don't want me to serve you? Jibril asked, giving her usual love-struck look. Whatever you want, I'll satisfy you. You can skip that. I prefer you the way you usually are. Riku replied with a straight face. Jibril yelped, as if hearing something unbelievable. Hey, Jibril, what's with that look? Is that so surprising? Riku complained. Isn't Master Lilikan? To say you like me as I am is shocking, Jibril giggled. Jibril, is your butt itching again? Want me to help? Riku raised his hand threateningly. Maybe not, Jibril laughed awkwardly and moved away. Fia, why are you biting me? Suddenly, Riku felt pain in his arm. Looking down, he saw Fia biting him with an angry glare, making him laugh and cry at the same time. Cheater, I'll bite you to death. Fia didn't let go. She bit harder, muttering indistinct words. Hee, little werebeast, it seems you didn't take my advice. Careful, or you really will get abandoned, Jibril egged her on. Riku glared at Jibril to make her stop. Alright, Fia, that's enough. I'll never abandon you. You're my first wife. Riku gently stroked Fia's head and whispered in her ear. First. So you really want a harem? Fia pouted, looking aggrieved. But Riku's words made her feel a little better. Still, having to share her most important person with others was really hard to accept. Yeah. But no matter how many other women I have, your place in my heart will never change. So relax, Riku said softly, stroking Fia's head. Don't overthink it, just relax, and tonight I'll make it up to you. With those words, plus the feeling of his breath on her ear, Fia's face instantly turned bright red. She nodded shyly, finally letting go, her eyes shining as she got lost in daydreams. Then, it's a promise, Fia finally mumbled quietly, her shy and cute posture making anyone want to hug her and spoil her. Hee. Seeing Fia's adorable appearance, Riku couldn't help but gently pinch her ear. In that instant, Fia's body trembled slightly. But even so, Fia didn't resist at all and simply let Riku play with her beast ears. Wait, this was really something to look forward to. The corners of Riku's mouth curled into a smile as his imagination began to run wild. Hee, Master, what were you two just talking about? Can I join in as well? Seeing the strange expressions and reactions on Riku and Fia's faces, Jibril ran over with a cheerful smile, full of curiosity. You? Forget it. Wait until you return to your original form, then we can talk. Right now, it's just too disappointing. Riku glanced at Jibril and shook his head, looking quite mournful. Ugh. I've used up all my power, and unless I use that special method in Avonheim, it'll take months to recover naturally. Hearing this, Jibril looked depressed. Just as Riku was starting to think this perverted angel was truly down, and was considering whether to give her one of those enhanced rations, Jibril's expression changed again. Hee, but Master, there's something I don't understand. Why can Fia be doted on by you, but not me? Logically speaking, in terms of cuteness, I'm not inferior to her. Jibril puffed out her chest, confident but confused. Hearing this, Fia snorted coldly and glared at Jibril, clearly unhappy that she wanted to bite Jibril right then and there. Jibril, you really don't get it. Riku looked at Jibril with a sorrowful face. Master, why don't I get it? Jibril looked puzzled. Fia herself is already a moe point. Her age and figure are like that, so the first impression is already deeply rooted. Plus, she has beast ears, that's something you don't have. Riku said with a perfectly serious face. Even though Fia felt a little embarrassed hearing this, she still showed a clear look of happiness, her ears twitching slightly. As for you, you give off that older sister aura, and now with this look. Compared to before, it's just far too disappointing. A onsen type should look like an onsen. Riku declared with the air of an expert. You're a character with a lore. To step into the realm of cuteness and hope to beat Fia? Impossible. I see. I understand now. So, Master, you're into everything after all. I always misunderstood you before, sorry about that. Jibril's eyes sparkled as if she'd made a new discovery, coming to a conclusion. Riku's eyes widened as he glared at Jibril. This girl she'd just set his preferences in stone. Jibril, you really need a beating. Looks like I really do have to give you a lesson today. Riku raised his hand with an air of authority. Hee, is Master finally going to punish me? I'm so happy. But after you punish me, could you let me observe your body for a bit? Hee, I won't do anything strange. It seemed Riku had underestimated Jibril's perversion. Hearing the word punish, she didn't feel scared at all. Instead, she looked excited, saying something that would make anyone blush. Even Fi averted her gaze, deciding it was pointless to compete with this perverted girl anymore. She suddenly felt that fighting Drumroll for Riku's attention was kind of stupid. "Riku, I want to play a game." At this moment, Shui suddenly spoke up. Hearing this, Riku looked at Shui, who seemed a bit different than usual, always staring at him with what looked like a small grudge. "Shui, let's play next time." But remembering how special Shui's games were, Riku felt a headache coming on. If he lost, with Shui's personality, she would just start right away regardless of who was around. If it were any other time, it'd be enjoyable, but here and now, it'd be a disaster. "No, I want to play now," Shui insisted. Now I'm curious. What game do you and Shui play, Master? Can I join in too?" Drumroll grinned. "I want to join too," Fi added at just the right moment. "Ahem, just chess. We'll play next time." Riku tried to sound casual. "Oh, is that so?" Both Drumroll and Fi immediately looked skeptical. "Yes, chess. It's just. The loser must. MMPH. Shui was about to blurt out the truth, but Riku quickly covered her mouth. Oh my god, if she said it, he'd be dead. "Oh, how interesting." Fi immediately grew suspicious, pouting. So it wasn't so simple. There was definitely something going on. As for Drumroll, her eyes burned with wild curiosity. This is getting out of hand. In the corner, Nervalen, looking a bit out of place, watched the scene unfold with a complicated expression and shook her head. Who would have thought that people who were fighting to the death before would now be soaking in a hot spring and chatting? Where a beast, Ex Machina, and Flugal all gathered around this man. Even she herself had become his maid. What an unbelievable human. Nervalen sighed. Finally, the chaotic hot spring session came to an end. Everyone donned yukatas and went to enjoy the dinner prepared by the Werebeast maids. During dinner, the attitude of the Werebeast elders shocked Nervalen. After eating, it was time for bed. It was already late, and after a day of fleeing and fighting, everyone was exhausted. But when it came to room assignments, thanks to Fia's deliberate arrangements, everyone was separated. Not even Riku and Fi were in the same room. Once the rooms were sorted, Nervalen was the first to fall asleep. She hadn't slept this comfortably in ages, though her changed status made her a little gloomy. But half an hour later, under the cover of night, a small figure crept out of her room like a thief, tiptoeing toward Riku's room. With beast ears quivering and dressed in a yukata, the blue-haired, red-eyed Lily was none other than Fia. Tonight, she had a special promise with Riku. "Husband, I'm here." Arriving at the door, Fia whispered softly. Her delicate little face was flushed, her tail swaying happily, clearly in an unusually good mood. After Fia spoke, a faint sound came from inside, and then the door opened. Riku appeared before her. "Fia, come in." Riku touched his face, smiling as he spoke. Hearing this, Fia nodded happily. At the same time, she felt a bit odd inside. Clearly, they were already husband and wife, yet they still had to sneak around like this. "Really? Husband, tonight, I'll satisfy you with that position too." Fia pinched Riku's sleeve, lowered her head, and spoke in a voice as soft as a mosquito's. Her little face was already bright red. "Really?" Hearing this, Riku couldn't help but call out in delight. "Tonight, I won't refuse." Fia didn't dare meet Riku's eyes, wiggling her toes nervously, looking very anxious. But it was understandable. After all, that position was just too embarrassing. Still, in just over a day, Riku had already gained so many women, her sense of crisis was getting serious, so she had to raise his affection for her. Then it's settled. Riku's lips curled into a smile as he lovingly patted Fia's head. Sure enough, having such a cute wife was wonderful. Tonight, more positions could be unlocked. "Alright, come in." Riku took Fia's hand and walked her inside. Then, the door closed. After some random noises, there were some dull thumping sounds, along with Fia's muffled gasps as she tried to endure something. No one knew exactly what was happening, but just imagining it was enough to stir the heart. Riku launched a relentless assault on Fia, putting his entire weight into it. No one knew how much time passed before they both trembled and stopped. "Wait, Fia, did you sense it?" Riku was still savoring the afterglow, about to begin a new round of battle, when his eyes suddenly grew sharp, looking toward a cabinet in the distance. Spirit reaction? A descent. "Who's there? Come out." Hearing this, still a little dazed and her eyes moist, Fia came back to her senses, covering herself and Riku with a blanket, shooting a sharp glare at that spot. She had been so focused on Riku and caught up in the moment, her senses weren't as sharp as usual, and she hadn't realized someone was hiding there. Just now, for some reason, that person exposed a spirit reaction, and only then did the two of them notice. "Riku, Fia, you can just continue. Don't mind me. I'm only here to collect data, so I can manufacture the most suitable hole for Riku. Under their sharp gazes, a figure slowly walked out, and a voice tinged with a bit of emotion sounded. Shui. Seeing who it was, both Riku and Faya were stunned. Then, Faya's face turned bright red, and she buried herself entirely under the blanket in utter shame. To have been watched the whole time, and in that position no less. It was just. Shui, why are you here? Riku's mouth twitched in exasperation. Based on Riku's heart rate and certain organ reactions, I deduced that something would happen tonight. So, while Riku and Faya were strolling in the courtyard, I snuck in here, hid my presence using special methods, and waited. Shui looked Riku in the eye and explained calmly. Hearing this, Riku's mouth twitched again. Shui, when did you learn all this and get so cunning? Based on the data just now, I have a 60% chance of manufacturing the most suitable hole for Riku. So, please don't worry about me, continue your reproductive activities. Shui stared intently at Riku, her words leaving everyone dumbfounded. Riku was speechless. Even if you say that, even if I don't care, with Faya acting like this, there's no way we're continuing. Riku, Faya, what's wrong? Please continue what you were doing. Seeing the two ignoring her, Shui frowned slightly, almost human-like, as she urged them. Ugh. Shui, you idiot. Finally, Faya stuck her head out, and at a speed that left Riku dumbfounded, dressed herself in her yukata and stormed out in utter rage and humiliation, even activating blood destruction to run away at a speed that surprised even Riku. What's wrong with Faya? Did I get in her way? Shui asked Riku, confused. Ahem, in a way, yes. Faya may act mature sometimes, but she still gets shy at moments like this. Riku coughed awkwardly, feeling helpless. Well, looks like tonight's happiness was totally ruined. Shui, even though Ex Machina don't need rest, you should go to sleep anyway. If you want to have a heart, you have to learn from humans. Riku said helplessly. Shui wants to sleep with Riku. Shui looked straight at him, speaking softly. Fine. Seeing Shui's determined look, Riku hesitated but finally nodded. But then, as if remembering something, he raised his index finger and said seriously, but, let's skip the games tonight, alright? Fine. A hint of disappointment flashed in Shui's eyes, but she nodded at last. After that, the two of them didn't do anything outrageous and simply fell asleep together. Hee hee, what a lively bunch. This kind of life isn't bad. On the rooftop, Drumroll gazed at the dim sky and smiled. But this life won't last long. Even if I agreed to be your servant, those people will still come and cause trouble. When the time comes, how will you get through it? Drumroll propped her chin in her hand, mumbling to herself. The next morning was as chaotic as ever, leaving Riku with a headache. Drumroll had definitely noticed what happened last night and kept bickering with Faya. Plus, with Shui occasionally chiming in, things were just way too noisy. Only Nervalin looked on in confusion, having no idea what was going on. After all, she'd slept the deepest that night, since she was so exhausted from all the running before. Chapter 39. A week later, while chatting with Drumroll, Riku suddenly froze, then stood up, his eyes flashing with resolve. Master, is something wrong? Husband? Riku. Immediately, Drumroll, Faya, and Shui all looked at Riku in confusion. As for Nervalin, she silently watched him as well. After her kin had rested at the Were-Beast village, Riku had released them, telling them to go and gather the other elves. This surprised Nervalin quite a bit. She'd expected him to keep everyone here, considering the impression of domineering control Riku had left on her. She was growing more and more curious about this man, wanting to know his secrets. I need to go somewhere. All of you, just wait for me here until I return. Riku swept his gaze around the group, then said with a grave face. Master, where are you going? Drumroll asked curiously. Husband, it's not right to shoulder everything alone, Faya said, full of concern. Riku said before always together with Shui. Shui said quietly. Actually, I fought with a Dragonia not long ago, and now I want to try bringing the Dragonia into our alliance. This time, I'm going to meet the Regenlith the Wise Dragon. Riku shook his head, then explained. What? The Wise Dragon? At these words, Drumroll, Faya, and Nervalin all gasped. Even Shui's expression stiffened. Master has already fought with a Dragonia? Now, this makes me really curious. But, Master, going to meet the Wise Dragon isn't the safest move. Drumroll first laughed with excitement, then grew serious. Husband, please be careful. While bringing the Dragonia into our alliance would massively boost our strength, these negotiations are incredibly dangerous, Faya said, her face full of worry. Riku, if you're going, please take me with you, Shui said suddenly, her words quite different from the others. This time, even the Dragonia are involved? Think Nervalin's heart was in turmoil. But those lofty Dragonia, would they really ever join an alliance? Don't worry, I'm pretty confident. Even if I can't bring the Dragonia into the alliance, I'll still get out safely. And if they try anything, I won't mind eliminating them ahead of schedule, Riku said calmly. Eliminate the Dragonia ahead of schedule. Hearing this, Think Nervalin couldn't help but take a deep breath, staring at Riku in shock. She didn't know where he got such confidence. Perhaps, before, she would have thought Riku was boasting, but after spending a week together, Think Nervalin no longer believed he was the type to speak nonsense. He clearly had something up his sleeve. Heh, so Master was still holding back even when fighting me. Now I'm even more curious. Jibril had already thought of this, her eyes blazing with fanatic excitement. Master, please take me this time, I want to witness your heroic glory. Fi opened her mouth, but ultimately said nothing. She wanted to go too, but needed to protect the others here. Besides, Shui, Jibril, and Riku all had spatial abilities. Escape would be easy. If she went along, she'd just slow them down. Of course, she could ask Jibril to take her via teleport, but having to beg that crazy angel who was always fighting her over Riku would be even more painful than death. Alright, then. Hearing Jibril's words, Riku thought for a moment, then nodded. In that case, Jibril and Shui, come with me. Faya, you stay and protect our people. Think, you assist Faya. Yes, I understand. Husband, please be careful, Faya nodded seriously. Master, understood, Think Nervalin replied, still a bit uneasy, but nodded all the same. Let's go, then. Riku then shared the spatial coordinates with Jibril and Shui. In a flash, the three of them disappeared from the room, leaving Fi and Think Nervalin silently exchanging glances. Thousands of kilometers away, in a certain mountain valley, Riku and his companions appeared. As expected of the Dragonia's nest, it's truly an astonishing sight. Riku surveyed the surrounding mountains reaching into the clouds and a dozen or so Dragonia soaring through the sky, unable to help but praise the view. Riku, I didn't hear about anyone else coming. At that moment, a white Dragonia below Riku's feet spoke with clear annoyance. That's right, the spatial coordinates Riku had set were on Zeralis's horn, so the group was now standing on her head. Heh, isn't that Zeralis? Long time no see. I really want to fight you again. Jibril immediately teleported in front of Zeralis's enormous dragon eye, her fighting spirit blazing. Humphrey, so it's you, you damn flugel. What are you doing here? And why are you so small now? Zeralis glared at Jibril, clearly annoyed. You've gotten so weak, and you dare show up in front of me? You think I won't just eat you in one bite? What a passionate welcome. But this time, I'm not here to challenge you, I'm here to accompany my master for alliance negotiations with the Dragonia. Jibril shrugged, unfazed. With your master? Riku is your master? He beat you, too? Zeralis was taken aback, then suddenly realized, speaking in surprise. Oh? So it was you. I'd only heard master fought a Dragonia, but didn't realize it was you, Jibril replied with equal interest. As you can see, I lost to master and became his trophy. But because master likes me in this childlike form, I've stayed like this. Trophy. He likes you childlike. Zeralis's gaze grew odd. Idiot Jibril, are you ruining my reputation again? Riku couldn't take it anymore and stepped in front of Jibril, flicking her on the forehead with an exasperated look. Why do I get punished even when I'm telling the truth? Jibril feigned a pitiful expression, grumbling in protest. Of course, Riku ignored the act and just turned to Zeralis. To have tamed this crazy flugel, Riku, you really aren't simple. Still, it's probably only possible with her. If it were any other, there'd be no chance at all. Zeralis shook her head, sighing. Hey, after fighting you so many times, you really do know me well. Jibril suddenly became serious, her smile sly. Compared to my interesting master, that god of war is just way too boring, just sitting there in a daze all day. You're the only one who'd dare talk about the god of war like that. Zeralis shook her head slightly. Ex machina. Just as Zeralis was about to say something to Riku, she finally noticed Shui, who had flown down beside Riku from atop her head. Zeralis's huge dragon eyes narrowed, a surge of emotion rippling through her. The Ex Machina, though ranked 10th among the races, were a force that couldn't be ignored. Their fearsome reputation was built on slaying Arinlif, the ultimate dragon, and 7 subordinate Dragonia. Although it was Arinlif who provoked the Ex Machina and was then killed, otherwise, as a race, the Ex Machina typically only act in self-defense and rarely go out of their way to make trouble. But, killed is killed. Right or wrong, there's bad blood between the Dragonia and the Ex Machina. As a follower of Reginlif, the wise dragon, Zeralis herself didn't hold much of a grudge, but those of Arinlif's kin. Not so much. Followers of Erinlif, huh? Riku noticed Zeralis's change in expression and immediately caught on, raising an eyebrow. Looks like this visit won't go so smoothly after all. Yeah. We, as followers of Reginlif, the wise dragon, don't care too much about it, but the other dragons might not be so forgiving. Zeralis said quietly. Riku, I'm sorry, it's my fault, Shui said softly, her face full of guilt. Not just because she might hinder the alliance, but for other reasons as well. It's fine, I have my own plans. Riku shook his head, patting Shui gently to reassure her. Hee, master, what's your plan? Jibril asked, clearly excited. This situation didn't seem good at all. What can I do? If they cause trouble, I'll just beat them all down. Riku replied lightly. I suppose you won't interfere, right? He turned to look directly at Zeralis. Hey, handle it however you like. None of us will help. Just don't go overboard and kill them all. Zeralis laughed. That's fine by me. Riku nodded in satisfaction. By the way, where's Reginlif, the wise dragon? Riku remembered his main purpose and asked curiously. Lord Reginlif will take some more time to return. Last time I managed to contact him, it was pure luck. Zeralis sighed. I see, Riku nodded, not surprised. The wise dragon's whereabouts were unpredictable. Honestly, he thought it'd take at least a month. Managing this in a week was already fast. Do you need me to show you around? Zeralis offered. No need, we'll wander on our own, Riku replied, his eyes flashing with intent. He hadn't come just to talk about an alliance with the Dragonia, but also to find 2 treasure chests, 1 diamond and 1 platinum. He'd opened silver and bronze chests in the last few days, but they didn't contain anything good, which left him frustrated. In that case, I'll leave you be. Call me if you need anything. With a nod, Zeralis flew off. Riku, where are we going now? Shui asked. Where? Treasure hunting, of course, Riku said, patting Shui's head with a laugh. Treasure hunting? Is there something valuable here? Jibril asked curiously. Well, that's a secret, Riku replied with a mysterious smile, heading towards the nearest platinum chest shown on his system map. Shui and Jibril could only follow him, full of curiosity. Soon, the 3 arrived at a mountain that looked like a nest. There, Riku spotted the platinum chest and walked up to it with a grin. Jibril and Shui watched, confused, seeing nothing ahead. Ignoring their confusion, Riku placed his hand on the chest. Instantly, platinum light flashed, and the chest opened. Ding! Congratulations, you've opened a platinum chest and obtained a contract card. Contract card, when someone outside drips blood on this card and swears loyalty, a special contract is formed. The master gains absolute control over their subordinate's life. One thought, and life or death is decided. After the contract, the master gains a random ability from their subordinate, and the subordinate's power grows as the master gets stronger. Limit, 5. This is a bit overpowered, Riku said in admiration. If used well, it's mutually beneficial, but the control is absolute. All in all, not bad. Riku nodded in satisfaction. Riku, did you find something? Shui came closer, curious. Master, why didn't I notice anything? Jibril looked around, confused. Don't think too much about it. Looks like we have company, Riku said, pressing the heads of the 2 girls beside him while eyeing the sky sharply. Seems so, and they're pretty arrogant too. Jibril narrowed her eyes, smiling. Race confirmed, Dragonia, Shui stated quietly, watching the sky. As they spoke, a wild wind howled, and a massive black figure blocked the sun above. Monkey. Fleagle. And Ex Machina. The giant black dragon looked down at Riku, Jibril, and finally fixed a deadly gaze on Shui, his voice deep and menacing. Instantly, the atmosphere turned heavy and tense. Such rude words. No wonder I hate all you followers of Erinlif, Jibril said coldly, looking up at the black dragon. Zeralis must have spread the word about Riku's power, but this black dragon still used slurs and looked down on them. His attitude was clear. To ally with a monkey. Zeralis must have lost her mind. And worse, she's following a monkey with an ex machina, the ones we Dragonia hate most. The black dragon glared at Shui, its voice full of killing intent. So arrogant, no wonder you black dragons always end up so miserable. Truly a disgrace to Erinlif's name, Riku sneered. Monkey. You've angered me. Die here. The black dragon's pupils contracted, roaring in fury, his voice shaking the heavens. Chapter 47th Gate. Gate of Shock, open. Ignoring the black dragon above, Riku activated the 7th gate, blue flames enveloping his body as his aura erupted to its peak. Boom. The next instant, Riku vanished and appeared right beneath the black dragon, slamming a punch into its belly. Crack. With a thunderous sound, The black dragon's stomach caved in, its scales shattered, and it was sent hurtling into the sky like a cannonball. Grey-ah! The black dragon's enraged roar turned into a howl of pain, the force of that blow clearly not insignificant. But Riku had no intention of letting up. Stepping through the air, he shot higher, rapidly ascending into the sky. Damn monkey, die! Finally regaining his posture, the black dragon Vard roared in fury and activated a word of power unique to the Dragonia. Instantly, Riku's body shattered into pieces, blood spraying everywhere. Humphrey, that's the price for crossing me. Vard sneered. Oh, you arrogant lizard, you can still fly? But in the next instant, Riku appeared before Vard's chin, delivering an uppercut that shattered everything in front of him, sending Vard flying and spewing blood. What followed was a one-sided massacre in the sky, with Vard being battered around like a ball. He couldn't even land a hit on Riku. Master was hiding a lot of his power in our last fight, huh? Jibril remarked with admiration as she watched. Shui's eyes flashed with a strange look. Far away, Zerulus watched the fight high in the sky and shook her head helplessly. She had already warned these dragons not to provoke Riku, and yet they'd come looking for trouble. Still, his power has grown even more compared to a week ago, Zerulus murmured, her eyes fixed on Riku, utterly dominating Vard. A week ago, he needed to go all out to hurt me. Now, without even using his trump cards, he's thrashing a dragon who's barely weaker than I am. That's just insane. Zerulus, is that the human you mentioned? He really is strong. Several white dragons flew over, watching the scene in shock. They doubted Zerulus' claims that she'd been defeated by a human. Now, there was no doubt left. Yeah. Zerulus nodded with a complicated expression. Shouldn't we break up the fight? One of the white dragons asked hesitantly. It's Vard's own fault, let him get beaten for a while, Zerulus replied flatly. Actually, I'm more worried that other dragons will get involved. Ever since Renlif fell, they've been extremely united. They do everything together, even travel in groups, another white dragon commented. We'll see what happens. If it gets out of hand, we'll intervene. They're all opposed to joining the alliance anyway, a good beating from Riku might do them good. The wise dragon hasn't returned yet, so it's not their place to cause trouble. True. The white dragons nodded and continued watching. Damn human. On the other side, the black dragon named Vard, utterly beaten, became even more furious. He gathered a massive amount of energy in his maw and unleashed a breath attack at Riku. Getting angry only makes you pathetic, Riku taunted, raising his Zanpakuto before him as the 5-meter-wide breath blast barreled toward him. In an instant, the dragon's breath vanished, absorbed into the blade, which shone with a faint light. What? Vard's eyes shrank with shock as he saw his breath attack absorbed. Stupid dragon, take it back. Riku pointed his Zanpakuto at the black dragon, speaking coldly. Bloom, Hanamaru. Boom. The tip of the Zanpakuto glowed, and a blazing pillar of light erupted, striking the stunned Vard. Dragon breath exploded, the sky was shrouded in a blinding blast, and the shock wave forced Shui and Jibril to defend themselves below. Even so, neither of them looked away. So he can absorb energy and fire it back. That sword is something else, one white dragon said in surprise. Just keep watching. Riku's true speciality is playing his opponents to death. His combat instincts are terrifying, Zerulus commented, her gaze full of caution. During her own fight with Riku, she had been toyed with and thoroughly outmaneuvered, unable to even scratch him. That was then, now he was even stronger. After a few seconds, the explosion faded. Vard, his scales shattered and bleeding all over, was revealed to all, looking utterly miserable. In agony, Vard tried to recover, preparing to manipulate time to heal, but suddenly, Riku appeared before his face, making his pupils contract in terror. Trying to recover with time manipulation? How naive. Riku sneered coldly, kicking Vard square inches the head. Boom. With a dull thud, Vard was sent flying like a meteor, smashing into a distant mountain and embedding himself in the stone, blood pouring from his wounds, his aura weakening. How can a mere human be so strong? Vard's mind reeled, terror overtaking him. For the first time, he felt the shadow of death looming over him. He might really die. Just as Riku was about to finish Vard off for good, a fierce wind whipped up, and 3 massive black dragons swooped in, surrounding Riku in the sky, their eyes filled with murderous intent. Humphrey, what's this? Can't win one-on-one, so now you gang up on me? Surrounded by 3 Dragonia, Riku remained indifferent, his expression mocking. Human, you're strong, but if you attack one of our kin, you must be destroyed, one of the black dragons said gravely. To create such chaos on our territory, you must die if we are to maintain our pride, another added. The last one said nothing, simply glaring daggers at Riku. Ha ha ha, what a joke. You once looked down on humans, And now you resort to ganging up on one, yet you still talk about pride? And you're the ones who started this fight. Riku couldn't help but laugh, full of ridicule. Humphrey, right and wrong are meaningless now. Taking this opportunity, Vard quickly manipulated time to heal his wounds and recover his strength, flying back into the sky with a furious look. 4 Dragonia ganging up on a single human, truly humiliating. But just letting it go wasn't an option either. Now they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, right and wrong don't matter anymore. All I have to do now is knock you overgrown lizards flat. Riku laughed wildly, his grin arrogant. Roar. Human, don't get cocky. Vard's words instantly reignited the fight as he led the attack, his dragon claws swiping at Riku. The other 3 black dragons also launched their own attacks, some using words of power, others unleashing their dragon breath. Boom. But all these attacks missed, exploding through empty air, their impacts booming through the sky. I knew it would come to this. Shouldn't we step in? One of the observing white dragons felt uncomfortable. 4 Dragonia beating up one person was shameful. No need. Let's just watch. It's not clear who'll win, honestly. Riku might even have the upper hand. Zorlis kept her eyes on the battlefield, speaking in a low voice. She remembered Riku's illusion-type ability. It probably wasn't so simple. Oh? Now I'm really curious, the other white dragon said, watching with growing interest. In the next instant, their eyes went wide, unmistakable shock on their faces. Vard's dragon breath, which should have struck Riku, instead hit one of the other black dragons. Riku had somehow turned into one of them. The attack landed squarely on his ally. Vard, what are you doing? The black dragon, who was hit, roared in fury. Vard had inexplicably attacked him, which infuriated him further. They were supposed to be getting revenge for him. I don't understand, I clearly aimed at the human. Vard was dumbfounded as he saw his bleeding companion. Hey, how amusing. Are you suddenly fighting amongst yourselves? Riku appeared nearby, Zanpakuto in hand, smirking playfully. Against Kyokusugetsu, numbers didn't matter. In fact, the more enemies, the more ways there were to toy with them. Just like Aizen, fighting so many enemies at once and turning them against each other without them even realizing it. Human, shut up. The injured black dragon, driven to rage, blasted another dragon breath straight at Riku. FSSSH. Riku was engulfed by the breath. But a moment later, Riku reappeared as yet another black dragon, and a powerful breath attack shot right through the real body of that dragon, blood spraying everywhere. Tanley, what are you doing? The wounded black dragon, after using time manipulation to heal, roared in pain. I swear, Tanley, the black dragon, was utterly confused, trying to explain. Be careful, his power is probably some kind of illusion, Vard said, his face grim. Cunning human. The other 3 black dragons roared. 4 against 1, and yet being toyed with this was beyond humiliating. They were about to explode with rage. Don't blame me for your own stupidity, Riku mocked, appearing on Vard's back. Boom. As he spoke, Riku stomped down hard on Vard, caving in his scales and sending his huge body plummeting to the ground, creating a massive crater and sending rocks flying everywhere. Explode. The other 3 black dragons, furious, unleashed words of power, and everything in their sight erupted in a storm of explosions. Space itself trembled, and shockwaves rolled. Riku's body seemed to be torn apart, but the mocking grin on his face only unsettled the dragons further. The next instant, Riku appeared on top of another black dragon's head, kicking it like a soccer ball through several mountains. For the Dragonia, it was outrageous that a mere human, so tiny by comparison, was kicking them around like they were nothing.